Ground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight, an exclusive. Footage from inside the Bibby Stockholm barge. And breaking tonight, the House of Lords have done the unthinkable on Rwanda. Also...
Hello, can I call the police? The people on the train!
Mizzy, the infamous criminal prankster, is live. Has he really turned his life around? And...
I would like to report what is an illegal operation in the French waters.
The French acting as a taxi service for illegal immigrants.
How do you ask for a drink? Come down. Tell him to stop hitting you.
Stop hitting me, mate.
Is it ever right to smack your child?
He has no proof that I'm a threat. Other than that, I was in ISIS.
Does everyone deserve legal aid? And who's in the wrong here? Watch very closely. Oh, there we go. I've got all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with my panellists, Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman Adam Brooks, and author Rebecca Reid. And we're going to address the elephant in the room. Yes, that's right. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. The House of Lords is a disgrace. Next.
The latest from the GB newsroom at 9:01. Well, the government's flagship illegal migration policy, the Rwanda bill, had another major setback, suffering yet another defeat in the House of Lords tonight. Peers have maintained pressure on the government over the Prime Minister's deportation plan, with continued demands for reassurances in the form of amendments. The House of Lords ignored ministerial calls to back down and again tonight insisted on further revisions to the Safety of Rwanda bill. Well, in response, the Home Secretary James Cleverly said afterwards, terrified that the Rwanda scheme will work, Labour has acted again to block the passage of the Rwanda bill. He continued, we want to break the criminal people smuggling gangs and stop the boats. Labour, uncomfortable with tackling immigration, will clearly stop at nothing to stop the planes. Meanwhile, the UK has signed an agreement with Vietnam to increase cooperation on tackling illegal migration. It comes as Vietnamese nationals overtake others as the predominant nationality on small boat crossings on the English Channel. Vietnamese nationals make up 5% of small boat arrivals last year. That's up from 1% in 2022, according to Home Office figures. In other news today, the boss of the Post Office has been exonerated following an independent investigation into allegations of bullying. Nick Reed always rejected claims of misconduct. The firm says he has its full backing now to lead the organisation, which continues to fall under the spotlight over the Horizon IT scandal, during which hundreds of sub-postmasters were wrongly convicted of theft and fraud. Now, as you've been hearing, smacking children should be made illegal in England and Northern Ireland, according to children's doctors. The Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health says the current law has created grey areas, which mean there's sometimes a defence to physical punishment. Their report warns children suffer lasting mental and physical effects from being hit in the home. Striking a child is already illegal in Scotland and Wales and in many other countries around the world. And just lastly, Prince Harry says the travel industry needs to do much more to help local communities. Speaking at an event for his eco-travel group, Travelist, the Prince said local cultures must be protected to ensure the tourism industry can thrive.
I urge you to focus on what more can be done to ensure the travel and tourism industry continues to have a licence to operate. Not one entity can own sustainability. We need to work together to change the course and focus on how travel and tourism can bring prosperity to the whole entire system.
For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
OK, heck of a lot to get through tonight. We are going to start with this. And as you have just heard, the House of Lords have refused to bow down to ministerial pressure and back the Rwanda bill in its current form. Peers insisted by 245 votes to 208, a majority of 37, on a requirement that the East African country cannot be treated as safe until further protections are in place. This means the bill will now return to the Commons on Monday. Look, James Cleverly's hit back. Big time. The Home Secretary said this: terrified that the Rwanda scheme will work, desperate to delay or disrupt over 100 votes about stopping the boats, Labour have acted again to block the passage of the Rwanda bill. Has the House of Lords now just signed its own political death warrant? I'm joined by GBNews' political editor Christopher Hope, live from Westminster. Are Labour really to blame for this?
Labour certainly are to blame for this, Patrick. They've whipped their peers to oppose, but the attempt by the Commons to reverse those 4 amendments. 2 of them will go back on Monday. They are from Lord Brown and Lord Hope. One is about ensuring that any Afghans who serve with UK forces can't be sent to Rwanda. The second from Lord Hope is to require repeated checks to show that Rwanda is a safe country. These are attempts, according to senior government sources, to delay this bill becoming law, this Safety of Rwanda bill. Don't forget, the PM, Rishi Sunak, wants his plane to take off with migrants on them by the end of the spring. That, by my calendar, is June the 21st. This goes back to the Lords on Monday, when, guess what, the same thing will happen again. That'll be the 4th iteration of the so-called ping-pong. I've been told by senior government sources tonight, here in the House of Commons and House of Lords, that they might go as many as 6 times back and forth. The delay, the time is on Labour's side. The more they can delay this, the less likely it is that these flights take off in number before the election. Labour's plan is to abolish it, scrap the plan, even if it's working. Well, it can't work if the Rwanda bill won't become law. Labour, the government side, there's no suggestion of any kind of bowing to this pressure from the peers in Labour. They're going to carry on and try to make sure they can get this through intact. The bill works, the government says. Labour disputes that.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think many people would argue, just unprecedented and, I mean, incredibly political, Christopher, isn't it? I mean, what could the upshot of all of this be?
It's not unprecedented. It's happened before. This ping-pong, this normally, like when you make sausages at home, Patrick, you don't see how it's done, but it tastes pretty nice when run to the grill. Normally, this legislation appears, and no one really pays attention to how it's gone through the House of Commons and the House of Lords. What's happening here is peers are upset, concerned about this. They don't see it mentioned in the manifesto because it wasn't in 2019. Therefore, they feel emboldened to try and change it. So it may soften it in a sense. The government's point of view, though, Patrick, is it opens up more loopholes for lawyers to exploit measures here, reasons why certain people can't be sent to Rwanda, and make it harder to get the flights taking off. That's the battle in place here. We've seen it before back in the mid-noughties when peers opposed the super casinos which Labour tried to build around the country, concerns about gambling and addictions then. So sometimes that's what the House of Lords does, but it's really frustrating for the government, for the House of Commons. They feel that why can't the Lords bow to our will?
Christopher, thank you very, very much. That's Christopher Hope there, our political editor in Westminster for us. So there we do have it. The Labour Party has whipped its lords to block that Rwanda bill again, and apparently could well now open even more legal loopholes for the lawyers to exploit. Well, look, moving on now. So why on earth was a Muslim pupil spurred on by a violent mob of religious fanatics given £150,000 in legal aid? The pupil wanted to make an entire school change its rules so she could do an Islamic prayer, and we paid her legal aid bill of somewhere in the region of 150 grand. When she leaves school and gets a job, she should be made to pay that back, and her mother, who went along with this, should start paying some of it back now too. You know, vulnerable women can't get civil legal aid to try to get a violent partner removed from their home in many cases. The Women's Budget Group did a survey. 85% of respondents said vulnerable women were unable to access civil legal aid. But if you are a Muslim schoolgirl who wants to take an outstanding school to the High Court, and you're supported by a baying load of lunatics who are calling in bomb threats and dishing out racist abuse and putting lives at risk, then you get the money. The number of legal aid cases to help people get the early advice they need dropped from almost 1 million in 2009/2010 to just 130,000 in 2021. Over the same period, the number of people having to go to court without representation trebled, reportedly. But if you are a Muslim schoolgirl who voluntarily went to a school knowing what the rules were and then cried about having your religious rights infringed, you can get 150 grand in legal aid. I'll tell you who else doesn't have any problem accessing legal aid. It is illegal migrants. Legal costs total 71 million quid between 2019 and 2023, averaging around 38 grand a day. A record 18 million pounds was forked out in 2020, with the cost coming in at 13 million pounds last year. If you're wondering why the legal community appears to be so angry about deportations to Rwanda, then really I think you just have to follow the money, don't you? The Ministry of Justice launched a consultation about increasing legal aid rates by 15% for immigration lawyers representing asylum seekers threatened with removal to Rwanda. Maybe some of the desperate female victims of domestic abuse should just run off to Syria and join ISIS, because Shamima Begum was given about 250 grand in legal aid, reportedly. Again, I can't help but wonder if there's a theme here. The Rochdale Pakistani grooming gang have reportedly received around 2 million quid in legal aid. We pay legal aid for all sorts of wrong-uns. Foreign rapists. After 5 years, 24 court appearances, 20 judges and 85 grand in legal aid, we eventually sent Yaqub Ahmed back to Somalia, but only after agreeing that the taxpayer should pay for a 14-week stay in one of Somalia's most luxurious hotels, all meals included, plus armed guards and a personalised therapy package after complaining of mental health issues. Seriously. It's the legal aid agency that ultimately decides, apparently, who gets awarded legal aid. But who are these people? Does anyone think it's a little bit odd that right across the country people are struggling to access legal aid, but if you are a foreign national, an illegal immigrant, an ISIS bride or a member of the British Muslim community, it seems like you will get what you need? Let's get their thoughts on my panel this evening. I've got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist, Adam Brooks, and author and journalist, Rebecca Reid. Mark, I'm going to start with you on this. Does everyone have a right to legal aid, in your view?
Everyone does in certain circumstances, I think. If you are charged with a criminal offence, so the state is saying, we think you've committed a crime and we're inclined to take away your freedom, and you don't have the money to get a lawyer, you're entitled to it. That does not pertain in this scenario, Patrick. I mean, how to start even on this story? There should be, in my view, no course of legal action here at all. Even if this girl had put forward 150 grand of her own money, or her parents had, I don't believe you should be able to litigate a successful school and a headmaster imposing their own prayer policy. So there shouldn't be a course of legal action whatsoever, even if it was privately funded. But if it is going to be a course of legal action, it should be done entirely from the cost privately, or you could crowdfund it for sake of argument. And a final point on this. 150 grand.
Well, 150 grand wasn't her costs because she lost. She also had to pay Bubble Sang's costs.
This is nuts.
And Bubble Sang had a very expensive lawyer. So that's not an accurate figure.
We should be able to surely adjudicate a decision like this. As I say, I don't think it should be actionable.
But then Bubble Sang's lawyers would have had to be capped too.
Rebecca, we should be able to adjudicate and decide on these things if you think they're actionable. I don't think they should be. for a few thousand.
But they did. It's
Not for
capped.
150.
It was capped. They did.
Not 150 grand.
Okay. But the issue with how would that work in practice? If you say legal aid is capped at X, if the person you are suing has a very expensive lawyer, how do you then facilitate capping
But what do you want that individual to do if her career and reputation is on the line and brought
This has been brilliant for her career and reputation.
Not
She's
if
loved
lost.
it.
If she'd lost, it wasn't.
Not if she lost.
Well, no, she would still have loved it. Have you seen the things she says? But going back to the specifics of the legal aid...
She said she sat down with me and she said that there've been bomb threats, teachers have been racially abused.
None of which there was any evidence for, but OK.
Well,
specifically...
that's outrageous.
Specifically... What?
That is outrageous that you're saying that there was no bomb threats. The police were called to the school and the school was shut down at one point. There is evidence for that.
OK, well, specifically to the legal aid question, you're automatically entitled to legal aid if you're 16 or 18. So 16 in full-time education, 18 not. So this is not... And then beyond that, the legal aid agency looked at this case and they said this was useful case law. So whether you agree with it or not, this means that it has changed case law going forward.
OK, Adam, a taxpayer's being ripped off with cases like this?
Yeah. Of course they are. I mean, we can't be expected to fund cases where people just don't like the law or they're against the policy. As you said earlier, this kid, the parents knew what the rules of the school were when they installed her in that school. And I'd like to go back to Catherine Burblesing because I believe she's a fantastic head teacher. I think the results are some of the best in the country.
They're not. They're consistent with lots of good schools. They're not the best in the country.
She stands up for discipline and against woke culture. And I think if there was more head teachers like her in this country would have a better chance going forward.
She also once said that working-class children needed harder discipline than middle-class children. She said some really objectionable things, but non-specifically to that.
Hang on, can I just say, on that, we now have a criminal justice system that is potentially going to give out more lenient sentences if people have had a harder start in life. So that is actually a universally recognised thing, isn't it?
Those are two different things.
What's so outrageous about that?
No, she's saying you have to be harder on working-class children, and what you're suggesting is the courts say you have to be softer.
Because they need more discipline.
Working-class children don't need more discipline. That's a really egregious thing to suggest.
You don't need all heads or principals to be utterly uniform, right? If Catherine Burblesing's not to your taste, don't send your kids to her school.
But when that kid started...
Send your kids to her school, abide by her rules.
But when that kid started at that school, they were allowed to pray.
We're missing a major point here.
It's not a matter of law.
But they were allowed...
It doesn't matter if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, if you're Sikh, if you're Hindu. If the rules are that you cannot pray, especially mass praying like some of them have, then that is the rules. I don't care. No religion should have any priority.
I agree.
And I'm firm on that.
I agree with you, but when that child started at that school, the rule was that they were allowed to pray, and the rule was being changed. So when you say, oh, don't send your child there, that's not the rule, that wasn't the rule to start with. That's not a fair judgment on that person's
Because it became too disruptive is what...
But they changed the rules. We can't keep saying, oh, don't send your child there. You've all said, don't send your child there if that's the rule. That wasn't the rule.
Apparently up to 30 children were praying in the schoolyard at one time.
I mean,
can you imagine
we all used to be doing poppers in the schoolyard. I'd rather that.
How disruptive that is. And again, it doesn't matter what religion it is.
Right. The school I was at changed their rules quite a lot while I was there. I didn't sue them.
All right, OK. Now, the People said in a statement issued by law firm Simpson Miller, the school was very well run and generally very good at managing everything, but I felt that I did the right thing in seeking to challenge the ban. And her mother said, my daughter's impassioned stance compelled me to support her, and I stand firm in that decision. Her courage in pursuing this matter fills me with pride, and I'm confident she's gaining valuable lessons from the experience. Yeah, so is the taxpayer, to the tune of about £150,000, so thank you very much. Right, there's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a Greek cruise, travel goodies and a £10,000 tax-free cash bank balance boost. Grief. Here's all the details you need.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest prize so far. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, look, still to come, more of that breaking news tonight. The House of Lords will not back down over the Rwanda bill and the parliamentary ping-pong continues. Is Rishi Sunak on the brink, or actually is this all Labour's fault? I will ask Tory MP Greg Smith what it means if his leader fails to get flights in the air. But first, he swiftly became one of the most hated teenagers in the country for social media stunts like this.
Hello, can I call the police? The people on the train!
Tearaway teen Mizzy has just come out of prison and insists that now he's got his life in order. I will quiz him next on whether he's honestly sorry for some of his rotten behaviour and if he has any sympathy for his poor victims and if he has a message for people who want to copy him. Stay tuned.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's a remarkable story, isn't it?
Amazing.
Extraordinary. And also, she was unflappable, apparently, the Princess Royal.
She's
just
brilliant.
refused to get out of the car and said, I'm not going anywhere. Extraordinary. Well, Jim Beaton was awarded the George Cross for protecting the princess and delighted to say joined us now, along with the former head of royalty protection, Di Davis. Jim, you won't remember, but I met you some time ago at the Imperial War Museum when Princess Anne was opening an exhibition to do with the George Cross, and you were there reunited with her. And you told me then what great admiration you had for the princess, cool under fire, but you didn't do so badly yourself.
It was probably my job. And also, I had a wee bit of police training, not very much, but a little bit, whereas Princess Anne had nothing. And yet, the way she displayed it, you would have thought she'd been highly trained to deal with any type of that situation.
Even though you'd had some training, you took 3 bullets for the princess. You effectively stood between her and a deranged gunman.
Well, I was supposed to be a protection officer, really, so I just tried to fuddle about. You must remember that back in 1974, there was no communication, and we were extremely lucky that Michael Hills, who was outside Clarence House and nearby, had got one of the fast police radios, or radios on his shoulder, so he was able to send a message out. Otherwise, we would have just been relying on the good old public to phone in and say there was something happening.
Yeah.
So times have changed drastically.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Jubber, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubber and Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight on GB News. Look, still to come after a convicted Iraqi sex attacker offers to pay for his own deportation flight home. Why have the Home Office still not removed him? Tory MP Greg Smith has his say on that and the latest madness from the Lords. But first, I welcome a controversial character to the studio. Who remembers Mizzy? Yes, it's the 19-year-old Londoner who caused outrage across social media last year, going viral for dangerous and sometimes criminal pranks like these.
Hey, let me get in here. We outside. Hey, hello, can I call the police? The people on the train.
Hello.
Hi.
You got a nice dog.
Sorry?
You got a nice dog.
She's lovely. She's family dog. Don't run away.
You gang, whole lot of gangs. Get outside. Hey. What, she got on the hill, fam? She actually got on the hill? Oh, that's crazy, man.
After combative interviews with Piers Morgan and BBC Newsnight, Mizzy was sent to prison in November after breaching an earlier court order that banned him from filming people without their consent. But since his release, the troubled teen is now trying to turn his life around, enrolling at college in a construction course and promising to do more to make his young child proud. Mizzy, thank you very much for joining us here in the studio on GB News. How are you?
Thank you very much, Patrick, and well, thank you for inviting me on GB News. I'm very fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much for coming in. Now, look, I do just want to ask you a bit about... Start with the positives. So, what you're doing right now, you're on some kind of construction course and things like that. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
So when I came out of jail, like, obviously, when I was in jail, I had decisions to make, and I was realising that I have to make right for my child. So I had a notepad, and I was writing down ideas and stuff, plans that I was going to make when I come out of jail. And one of those was to get my CSCS card, because me having a criminal record, obviously, is going to be a lot harder for me to get a job. So I said, I'm going to get a CSCS card, I'm going to enrol for a course, because a couple of my friends are doing the same thing. So I decided, yeah, I'm going to get this course, I'm going to get 50 out of, I was going to pass it, and I did pass it. I got 50 out of 50, passed my construction course, and I got my CSCS card. That's one of the plans that I wanted to make.
Good, and you were sent to prison. Look, what was that like? Was that a bit of a wake-up call for you? I mean, how long were you in there for as well?
So I got sentenced to 4 months, basically, and in the UK, obviously, you do half of your sentence if it isn't a violent crime. So I was meant to do 2 months, but I got out in a month for good behaviour because I didn't really do enough. I was just sitting in my cell reading books.
What was it like for you in prison?
Obviously, me being quite known, everyone just came up to me, they wanted to speak to me, they wanted to understand why I was in jail, because obviously my pranks weren't too violent, they weren't too vicious, they were quite harmless. So for me to be in jail for my pranks, people were questioning and asking me. So a lot of people just tried to talk to me, understand where I'm coming from. And to be fair, jail wasn't too bad, but I would never recommend jail. Not even recommend jail, because why would I recommend jail? But jail was not a place to be. And when I was in jail, it made me realise more that I had to change my life around so I didn't come back into jail, because that's not a place where I want to keep myself in.
Now, you did say a phrase there that your pranks weren't too harmless. I think we have played a couple of clips of some of them already, and we do have a couple more as well. There were some quite shocking things, really. You went into someone's house, went into a couple of people's houses. We've got a little clip of it now. Let's just take a little look at.
Let's go.
So you're in someone's house there. What we can't hear now is that people were very, very scared. There was also one where you stole an elderly lady's dog as well. How do you feel looking back at those things now?
So looking at back, like, I don't like looking back at them, because to me they're a constant reminder of the negative things that I've put into the world. Like, it's a constant reminder of my past and I still bear the consequences of my actions. So looking back at them, it's a constant reminder of the bad that I've put in. And I hate looking at my old videos, because it's like a stage in my life where I was quite unstable, and I didn't have a support system around me to guide me in the right direction. So I was just doing whatever I wanted to do because of the way I grew up and the surroundings I was in.
Do you regret it?
100% I do regret it. And looking back at it, I would have never done what I had to do if I was in a suitable financial situation for myself. I done what I had to do to make it out of what I've been put into.
I think some people might be concerned that you could go back to doing that stuff. Would you?
100% no, because I've already learned that what I've done is going to have consequences. All I've done, like, I've been to jail twice, I've gotten sectioned, I've been through the system so many different times in so many different ways, and I'm still here as a sane, calm, collective person. And I just want to now preach my story to the youth and make sure they don't get into the same situation that I got into.
And other media outlets, apparently, this is the reason why I got in touch with you, because I saw over the weekend, it was on Saturday, you tweeted something about how you'd done interviews with other media outlets, and I think the insinuation was that they were all over you when you were doing bad things, and they wanted to be a part of you when you were a really, really controversial character who was up to no good. And now you have, as you say, you're turning your life around, you're doing what you can. People didn't really want to know you. Is that true? Do you think you've kind of become less notorious now that you've actually got yourself an internship and apprenticeship?
I would say so, yes, because even BBC reached out to me, a couple of other news channels reached out to me wanting to do an interview with me about my change. But when they've done the interview and I've shown them me as a person, like, yes, I'm actually trying to change, I'm actually trying to better myself for myself, my child, my family, and all the people that I've hurt in the past for my pranks. I've said this on the interviews, and they haven't dropped the interview. The BBC interview was supposed to drop, they didn't drop it. I've done an interview with The Guardian, they didn't drop it as well. And I feel like because I'm trying to enforce my positive change, they're not trying to push it out there because they want to promote negativity, because negativity sells, controversy sells in the media, like I said before.
You mentioned the media there. I understand that you're doing some kind of media course as well, is that right?
Yeah, so obviously right now I'm currently doing a video, I'm doing two internships. So I'm doing an internship with Video Production News as a journalist where I write articles every Friday, and I'm also doing an internship at a company called Sound Bank, innit? And it's basically, I do digital marketing, but the company itself, they promote creators, digital creators and musicians, and try, like, give them a space to create. So it's like a creative space.
OK. Now, look, you did have a lot of influence when you were doing your videos, right? You did have a lot of influence, and that influence was really quite negative. And I've taken a bit of stick online tonight for having you on. People are saying, look, you shouldn't give this guy a platform, OK?
I've seen it myself, man.
Yeah, all right. And I did want to give you a platform, but I also want to give you an opportunity to apologise to anyone that you might hurt, and also give a message now to people who might want to copy some of the things that you've done, because people have copied it. So is there anything you'd like to say about that?
So the first thing you addressed, yeah, I do want to say sorry, because I did say sorry in the BBC interview, and that's the only thing they put out as a clip. So I don't know why they tried to do that, but I'll say it again on GB News here. I apologise to all the victims in the past that I've may have caused distress to, may have harassed, may have mentally tormented in any type of way. I apologise to them because I didn't mean to do that, and I was just having fun at the moment, but I didn't realise that it would have negative repercussions and negative effects on their psychological, like, way of thinking. So I apologise for that. And also, the one thing I have to say to the young people is social media isn't real. Like, what I've portrayed to the guys on the internet is that I'm this cool, oh, yeah, we outside, I don't give two shits. I don't know if I'm sorry.
Carry on.
I don't give a toss about anything. But me as a person, I really do care. And for people to, I don't really read comments on the internet, because if I was to do that, I would probably go into a depressive state. But for everyone to say what they're saying and for me to realise that what I've done is bad, you don't want to go into the same tangent that I went on to, where it was just a constant cycle of going to jail, going to this, and then continuing on the same thing, because that's all I know. All I can say to you guys is believe in yourself, and there's bigger things you can do out there than just being an absolute menace on the internet or being antisocial. Like, if you have ambitions, like I like to read, I like music, I want to go deeper into my passion so I understand me as a person and not what other people think I am. Well, look, that's what I really have to say.
You've got a big opportunity ahead of you because you're young, OK? You are an articulate young man. You are obviously intelligent as well when you talk like this. And I really hope, for your sake and for the sake of a lot of people who did take a negative influence from what you did initially, that you really don't go back down that route, because I think you've got the potential now. You've got a bit of a platform and you've got everything going for you. You could make a real positive change.
Because that route that I went down isn't the route for me. Obviously, I have a child as well, and I have to be there, not just for me, but for my child, for my child's mother, for my mother. I have to be there for a lot of people. It's not just me. So I need to put in the work and show the results.
Don't mess it up.
100%.
All right. Look, Mizzy, thank you very much. And just a quick apology for a bit of fruity language there, but, you know, we're all adults here, aren't we? So, look, Mizzy, thank you very much, and good luck, OK?
Thank you, Patrick.
All right, OK. Now, look, coming up, should the bank accounts of benefits claimers be monitored? Is it ever OK to smack a child? Doctors are furious at a legal loophole that allows parents to do just that. Reform MP Lee Anderson is unleashed, and he's on this show very shortly. But next, the House of Lords has snubbed ministerial calls to back down on the Rwanda bill. Is Rishi Sunak's premiership now in jeopardy? Plus, an unidentified Iraqi rapist who lied is waiting to Britain. Even Labour MPs are dumbfounded by this.
Who lied about his name and country of origin, is a convicted sex offender who's breached the terms of his licence, and the courts want him returned home. He wants to return home and will even pay for his flight.
All of that with top Tory MP Greg Smith, and it's next. Stay tuned.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening. Temperatures dropping away tonight. It's going to be a cold start tomorrow. Much of the south will stay fine, but further north, some rain and cloud moving in, thanks to this little area of low pressure that's drifting south. Ahead of that, we've had a couple of weather fronts bringing some rain today, particularly for Northern Ireland. That's now spreading south across parts of Pembrokeshire, Devon and Cornwall, but clearing through this evening. Further showers across eastern England, they'll steadily fade as well. And where we've got the clear skies, southern Scotland, northwest England, Wales, a hint of blue on the chart, suggesting there will be a frost, certainly in the countryside. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing, but certainly a chilly start to Thursday. For many, a bright sunny start. There could be some showers early on across Kent. They should fade, but rain will creep into the Highlands of Scotland, the Western Isles first thing, and that'll spread across most of Scotland by lunchtime. Parts of the north and east of Northern Ireland seeing some rain, and through the afternoon turning damp over northern England and North Wales. But much of the south will stay dry and bright. We could reach 15 in London, a brighter day across East Anglia. Cooler further north with the winds picking up, and those brisk winds then a feature of the weather on Friday as well. Friday, broadly speaking, a mixture of sunshine and showers, a duller day across the southeast and a much wetter day across East Anglia compared to tomorrow. Feeling chilly again with that wind. Much of Northern Ireland, Scotland having a drier day, but still on the fresh side, 8 to 14 degrees.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
So J. Cole, who is a rapper, says he felt terrible after releasing a song aimed at fellow rapper Kendrick Lamar and vowed to pull the track off streaming services. He said, "I ain't gonna lie to y'all. The past 2 days felt terrible," he told an audience at the Dreamville Festival in North Carolina. "I damn near had a relapse," he said.
There's a lot of young people, especially, you know, that would look at that and they will take it not just as entertainment.
It doesn't happen in any other form of art that I can think of. This is not happening in country music, is it?
Well, it's the same. It's the same problem in both cases, isn't it? Who's doing the regulating? And surely it's each case on its merits, isn't it? You don't just ban a genre.
Why is there such a lot of hatred for a man who usually would have trash talked back? To stand up and say, you know, this doesn't sit well with me and I love this guy. If we look at, I think his name was Cody Fisher, the semi-professional footballer who died in a club because someone stabbed him. Now, he was stabbed because he stepped on someone's trainers. This is the level of ego we're seeing from a lot of young men who don't have any output of being able to channel that energy, and a lot of it is stemming from cultures like football, hip-hop, these sorts of things. So I'm just saying it's refreshing to see a man who could have easily wiped the floor with his lyrics say, I don't have to, you know?
That is interesting, isn't it? Because I took this interview in the wrong direction. It's not about pointing out the areas of concern. Actually, this story is saying, look, music and art can be giving you an example of how to live a slightly better life.
That's free speech, saying, sorry. I'm sorry, I choose not to fight back because I love you. It may look like a wimpy thing to do, but it's still free speech.
You know what? I love you, Paul. Sorry about earlier.
All right, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Look, still to come, should those receiving benefits have their bank accounts monitored, and is it ever OK to smack your child? Reform UK's Lee Anderson gives his no-nonsense take on both of those things. But first, To that breaking news tonight, what you're looking at there is the House of Lords. The Rwanda bill shambles continues after the government suffered 2 more defeats in the House of Lords this evening. Peers voted in favour of 2 amendments, meaning that the bill will be sent back to the Commons for the 5th time on Monday, putting pay to the government's expectations that the bill would become law by the end of the week. Well, the Home Secretary, James Cleverly, has kicked back. He says, terrified that the Rwanda scheme will work and desperate to delay or disrupt over 100 votes about stopping the boats, Labour have acted again to block the passage of the Rwanda bill. It's been another politically cynical effort by them, who have no alternative deterrent and no plan to tackle illegal immigration to frustrate the only solution on offer. Oh, welcome now, Conservative MP Greg Smith. Greg, thank you very, very much. I mean, is this all Labour's fault, really?
Well, we'd have a bill, we'd have an act. We'd have it through, we'd be off to the King for royal assent if Labour hadn't whipped their members in the House of Lords tonight to frustrate this yet again. And I can tell you, Patrick, that on the doorsteps in my constituency, on the doorsteps of nearby colleagues who I'm helping and supporting in this campaign, people want the boats stopped. And it's the Labour Party in the House of Lords that have frustrated this now in excess of 100 times. We can't trust Labour on this. This is the party that constantly signs the letters saying, you know, don't deport the foreign national offenders. This is the party that goes through the voting lobbies in the Commons and the Lords to stop all the legislation we've passed to try and resolve this issue.
I mean, Labour will say that the public know that this is a cornerstone of Conservative Party policy, yet all the opinion polls show that Labour are probably going to win the next general election, so therefore they might be on the side of the people by rejecting this.
I can tell you from the doorsteps. I can tell you when I did my summer surgery tour last summer, the number of people who came up to see me, the absolute tip of their tongue. You've got to stop the boats. This is the thing we're looking at you to do. Now, we've got the plan. OK, it's taken a while. I put my hands up and accept that. But we've got a fresh bit of legislation that hopefully will resolve the problems we've had with the courts, the problems we've had with all the activists trying to frustrate this policy. The real frustrators are the Labour Party. They're the lefties in the House of Lords, they're the lefties in the House of Commons who troop through those voting lobbies to stop this from happening.
I mean, there has been... I will just slightly push back and say there's been a bit of kickback from within your own party as well, but this is arguably one of the reasons why things like the Rwanda bill many people think are so important, OK? I've got a couple of stories here for you. So an Iraqi sex offender remains in Britain despite offering to pay for his own flight home, with the Home Office failing to authorise his deportation.
I draw the Minister's attention to the case of a man in Newport who lied about his name and country of origin, is a convicted sex offender who's breached the terms of his licence, and the courts want him returned home. He wants to return home and will even pay for his flight, but for some unfathomable reason, the Home Office seem incapable of allowing or authorising or allowing this, and it's been 3 years. Why?
The issue is because he's on the sex offenders register and needs permission from British authorities. But look, let's just go through it again, OK? Did he lie about his age? Yes. Did he lie about his nationality? Yes. Did he lie about his name? Yes. Has he been convicted of sex and drug offences? Yes. Has he been deported? No. No, there we go. Look, Greg, what's going on here at the Home Office?
I'm not going to attempt to defend the indefensible in that. There is no reason whatsoever that guy should still be in the United Kingdom. And it's got to be something the Home Office have got to get a grip on. It's got to be something... He's just got to be out of there. Look, he's even offered to pay for his own flight. Well, good, let's take his money. Let's get him out of the United Kingdom. There is no grounds for foreign national offenders, for people who have committed the most heinous crimes and lied about getting here in the first place to remain in our country. And I can only repeat, I'm not going to defend the indefensible on this. It's something the Home Office have got to get better at.
Yeah, I mean, people will be screaming at the TV screens, I've got 14 years, Greg, 14 years, and here we are. And I just don't think that's necessarily good enough, really. We've got the Home Office here saying, now the farce in the English Channel continues with fresh evidence emerging. Oh, no, sorry, I've got a Home Office statement for you here, actually. A long-standing government policy that we do not comment on individual cases. There we go, that was worthwhile. Now, the farce in the English Channel continues, with fresh evidence emerging of the French Navy escorting migrant boats across the water to the UK. And when they got in the way of one English cargo ship outside Dunkirk, the captain decided enough was enough.
I would like to report what is
an illegal operation in the French waters. This morning we witnessed a vessel and a French warship escort a boatload of illegal immigrants across the channel to the midway point, where they handed them over to another ship out of Dover, which has now arrived in Dover. This is not search and rescue. This is the illegal trafficking of human personnel. I have now reported this to the UK authorities.
I mean, the French acting as a taxi service for illegal migrants here.
Look, we've given them an absolute ton of money to try and help us. They claim that they want the illegal crossings to be stopped as well. It's damaging their economy, their coastline. Yet a warship in the English Channel, in French waters, escorting an illegal crossing into British waters. I think we've got to have a serious word with the French authorities here, with the French government, because they can't take our money in good faith in the interests of stopping these illegal crossings, stopping the people smugglers, stopping the abuse of human beings in the English Channel, and then finding them in their own waters and actively bringing them into British waters. That is wholly unacceptable. That is not something that anybody expects from a friend, from an ally, from another country who is supposedly helping us in this endeavour. If you find an illegal crossing, if you find a craft in your own waters, the duty falls on the French government to bring that craft back to the French coast and to process those people appropriately through the asylum system, through whatever it might be. It is certainly not acceptable for a foreign government to escort an illegal crossing into somebody else's waters.
I think some people are saying, well, why did we pick them up then? Are we just a bit too nice?
Nobody wants to see people die in the Channel, right? I don't want to see people die in the Channel. I don't want to see human beings suffering. And so once they find themselves into our waters, we're in a very difficult position. I think it is the human thing to do to ensure that they're not in peril on the sea. However, we've been very clear as a parliament, we've been very clear as a Conservative government that illegal entry into this country is unacceptable. And that's why we're trying to get the Rwanda bill through. That's why there's a whole series of measures being taken to stop these crossings and ensure that people can't stay here if they enter illegally. The French really haven't helped in this case.
Greg, look, thank you very, very much. That's Conservative MP there, Greg Smith. Look, in response, the Coast Guard informed the individual in that video there was an arrangement between the British and French governments for the French Navy to escort migrant boats towards the UK, which, you know, is not particularly great, I think, is it? There is also a response here from the government, which says we work with France in the English Channel to ensure people are recovered as safely as possible. Our successful work together helped to cut arrivals by more than a third last year. OK, all right, well, look, earlier today, Labour Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said on the Rwanda bill, Tory MPs just voted to insist that Afghan interpreters who served British armed forces can be sent to Rwanda, a scheme which costs £2 million per asylum seeker, a £500 million scheme for less than 1% of asylum seekers, which now includes those who work with our troops. She says shameful and shambolic, she says, but obviously we do await a little bit more detail on what smash the gangs means from Labour, which, as it currently stands, means precious little. But anyway, coming up at 10 p.m, we've already heard how they're bust into luxury coaches, OK? But I'm about to show you exclusive footage of what they're up to inside the Bibby Stockholm barge. And I think this raises serious questions over that human rights line about this being some kind of prison ship, OK? So stay tuned for that. But next, the DWP plans to snoop on benefits claimers' bank accounts in a bid to recover 600 million quid lost to fraud. Is it justified or is it Orwellian? And is it ever OK to smack a child? Reform MP Lee Anderson. He's chomping at the bit, as you can imagine. He's live and he's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Squatters in London have taken over a pub which is leased by Gordon Ramsay, no less. The pub is currently up for sale with a guide price of £30 million. It is understood that Kitchen Nightmares host Ramsay called the police on Wednesday but was unable to have the squatters removed. The Metropolitan Police said in a statement they were made aware of squatters at a disused property but added, "This is a civil matter," and so police did not attend the property. Let's see what my panel make of this. Why can't we just boot squatters out? If we own a property or lease a property, why don't we just boot them out?
I know that's tempting, but the fact is, long-term empty properties have increased by 24% in the last 6 years. There's 1.2 million people on the social housing lists. People don't have a place to live.
What it does highlight is the enormous disparity in fairness in property laws in this country. I mean, it's just not fair that if you've worked all your life and invested some money in property because, you know, interest rates at zero and there's nowhere else to invest your money, and then suddenly somebody who's got no claim to that property and doesn't seem to have earned very much in life takes over your property. It's an outrage.
People shouldn't be squatting in other people's homes or commercial properties. But the fact is, until we sort the housing problem in this country, none of this is going to go away. The fact is, people my age won't be able to buy a home unless they've got a bung from their parents.
Yeah, but what's the practicality of this demonstration?
It's not a demonstration.
It's not going to free up more housing for people who are on the streets.
No, of course not.
Is it?
It's people looking to find a place to live. I don't think it's a demonstration at all.
It's an anti-wealth, anti-property-owning demonstration by people who've got nothing better to do in life than break into other people's property.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Look, coming up, woke middle-class left-wingers claim the Bibby Stockholm is inhumane, but I've uncovered shocking new footage that shows what life's really like on that migrant barge. But first, lawyers have slammed government plans to monitor the bank accounts of benefits claimants. They say it's Orwellian. The Department for Work and Pensions wants new powers to require banks to trawl the accounts of benefits recipients in order to catch welfare cheats. But the civil liberties group Big Brother Watch has warned the plans risk breaking privacy and freedom of expression laws. Well, get this, because an astonishing 7.3 billion quid of your money, taxpayers' cash, was lost to benefits fraud last year. So is it really such a bad idea to monitor their bank accounts? I'm joined now by Reform UK MP Lee Anderson. Lee, should we be snooping on potential benefits cheats?
Well, there's always exceptions to the... Well, I say no to start off with, Patrick. There's always exceptions to the rule. I mean, if they'd been snooping on Angela Rayner's bank account over the past 10 years, they might have known where she actually lived. But seriously, the DWP make enough states in enough cock-ups of their own, and then they're saying they need to snoop on people's bank accounts. I'm sorry, get your own house in order. Benefit fraud should not be being committed. They have the tools in place to sort this out. I think this, you know, when you consider, Patrick, that there's millions and millions of people in this country on benefits, not just working age people, people out of work and pensioners, etc. You know, do they really want the DWP snooping into their own affairs? Because if they start poking around your bank account, you're looking at what people are spending their money on, direct debits, whatever. It is Orwellian, and the DWP are, you know, a bit like the Home Office at the moment. They're making mistake after mistake. We've seen during COVID They wasted billions of pounds they doled out to people on dodgy loans and stuff like that. So it's a big fat no from me.
I mean, we lost 11 billion quid over 2 years to benefits fraud. I mean, that is real money. That's real hard-working people's money in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And I think we deserve an apology, don't we?
Well, it's not just that, Patrick, but, you know, when these people are actually caught, and we see it sometimes, we've seen it with the Bulgarian benefit fraudsters last week on your show, when these people are caught, and if it's just, I mean, sometimes only like a few £1,000s, but it's a lot of money, it's taxpayers' money, they're not given a severe enough penalty. I mean, I'd just lock them up, I would. And actually make them go to work once they've defrauded the DWP, the taxpayer, make them go to work and pay that debt off.
All right, well, look, I've got a right reply here from the Department for Work and Pensions. They've said Big Brother watches claims that DWP will use these measures to reveal information about people's movements, opinions and medical information are entirely false. These measures will require third parties to provide only limited relevant information that may signal whether benefits are being improperly paid. It does not give DWP access to anyone's bank account or see how claimants are spending their money. It's a question of believability with that stuff, though, isn't it, I think? And is it a slippery slope? But, Lee, I'm keen to talk to you about this because a group of leading doctors have called for parents to be banned from smacking their kids because they say it leads to long-term violence and mental health problems in later life. Now, currently, hitting a child is illegal in both Scotland and Wales, but a loophole in England and Northern Ireland allows parents to smack their child if it can be counted as reasonable punishment. So, Lee, is it ever OK to smack a child?
It is, and we have to make a distinction, Patrick, between smacking a child for bad behaviour and, you know, a beating. And nobody wants to see children being hurt in this way. But I think responsible parenting, you know, carrot and stick approach to parenting, which a lot of good parents use, is the right thing to do. Some of these paediatricians, these doctors, whatever, I think they need to butt out a little bit, Patrick. You know, I see children going to school in my neck of the woods. We've got obese kids. We've got kids can't dress themselves. We've got kids can't go to the toilet when they start school at 4 or 5. We should be concentrating on this, the basics, making sure that our young children have got the, you know, the basic skills to go through school. This is just nonsense. You know, we're turning it down here in London now. We're seeing young men, predominantly young men. You know, they're leaving school. They've had bad parenting, and they're turning to night drives.
Were you smacked as a child?
Yes, I was smacked, and my dad will be watching this now, and I look back fondly on my thrashings. No, seriously, I had the odd clip round the ear. And I tell you what, Patrick, when I went to school at a time when our headmaster, well, he wore a 3-piece pinstripe suit, stick under his arm at junior school, and if you won't be charged with misbehaviour, you got a quick whack with a stick. Nowadays you turn up at school and it's some headmistress with pink tights, pink hair, and a stud through the nose, wanting to hug everybody. It's nonsense.
Well, there we go. Lee Anderson, no nonsense as ever. All right, you take care. All the best, Lee. I'll see you next time. All right, I was Reform UK MP Lee Anderson. Do you agree with him? Do you not? Look, coming up, though, in the head-to-head. Following this bombshell cash report that has exposed how British kids were given harmful puberty blockers despite little to no evidence of their safety, should the former chief executive of LGBT charity Stonewall, who remarkably, by the way, is a baroness, lose her peerage? But next, as illegal migrants have been spotted, Bibby, Stockholm barge without care in the world. So there they go. Look, we've got some footage for you. I've got exclusive and eye-opening footage to show you from inside the Bibby Stockholm barge. Campaigners say it's inhumane, but what I'm about to show you would suggest very strongly otherwise. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. We're only on GB News. Now it's your weather with Alex Deakin.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening. Temperatures dropping away tonight. It's going to be a cold start tomorrow. Much of the south will stay fine, but further north, some rain and cloud moving in, thanks to this little area of low pressure that's drifting south. Ahead of that, we've had a couple of weather fronts bringing some rain today, particularly for Northern Ireland. That's now spreading south across parts of Pembrokeshire, Devon and Cornwall, but clearing through this evening. Further showers across eastern England, they'll steadily fade as well. And where we've got the clear skies, southern Scotland, northwest England, Wales, a hint of blue on the chart, suggesting there will be a frost, certainly in the countryside. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing, but certainly a chilly start to Thursday. For many, a bright sunny start. There could be some showers early on across Kent. They should fade, but rain will creep into the Highlands of Scotland, the Western Isles first thing, and that'll spread across most of Scotland by lunchtime. Parts of the north and east of Northern Ireland seeing some rain, and through the afternoon turning damp over Northern England and North Wales. But much of the south will stay dry and bright. We could reach 15 in London, a brighter day across East Anglia. Cooler further north with the winds picking up, and those brisk winds then a feature of the weather on Friday as well. Friday, broadly speaking, a mixture of sunshine and showers, a duller day across the southeast and a much wetter day across East Anglia compared to tomorrow. Feeling chilly again with that wind. Much of Northern Ireland, Scotland having a drier day, but still on the fresh side, 8 to 14 degrees.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and explore Greece like never before. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight, an exclusive inside the Bibby Stockholm barge. And
so the controversial decision is: do you let Sarah take a puberty blocker pre-puberty? And the medical view is yes, you do. So in fact, it's pretty safe.
why is this woman facing calls to be sacked? And the House of Lords does the unthinkable on Rwanda. Also, who's in the wrong here? Look very closely. Yeah, we'll reveal all later. I've got tomorrow's newspaper front pages tonight with the director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman Adam Brooks, and author Rebecca Reid. Oh, yes. And we have to address, don't we, the elephant in the room. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Exclusive footage from the Bibby Stockholm next.
At 1 minute after 10, the top story from the GB newsroom tonight is that the government's flagship illegal migration policy, the Rwanda bill, had another major setback, suffering a defeat in the House of Lords. Peers maintain pressure on the government over his deportation plan, Rishi Sunak's deportation plan, that is, with continual demands for reassurances in the form of amendments. The House of Lords ignored ministerial calls to back down and again tonight insisted on further revisions to the Safety of Rwanda bill. The Home Secretary, James Cleverly, said afterwards, "We want to break the criminal people smuggling gangs and stop the boats. Labour, uncomfortable with tackling immigration, will clearly stop at nothing to stop the planes." In other news today, a 28-year-old man convicted of attempting to murder 2 elderly worshippers in mosques in London and Birmingham in what a judge described as horrific attacks has been sentenced to an indefinite hospital order. Mohammed Abkir, who has paranoid schizophrenia, threw petrol over his victims and then set them alight outside the mosques. The court heard that 82-year-old Hashi Adowa and 70-year-old Mohammed Rayaz were chosen at random because Abkir believed they were possessed by evil spirits. Mohammed Rayaz Jr. said his father's attacker should have been sent to prison to face the maximum sentence.
Mohammed Abkir, who set my father on fire, he's not going to serve a prison sentence, but he's going to be going to a hospital, probably get served a 3-course meal and have an evening cup of tea, whereas he should be in a prison, you know, facing, you know, maximum punishment, especially setting 2 people on fire in 2 main cities of the United Kingdom. You're talking about London and Birmingham. I mean, how could this happen?
Hugh Grant, the actor, has settled a legal case against the publisher of The Sun over claims journalists used private investigators to tap his phone and burgle his home. The actor's lawsuit was one of those eligible to go to trial at the High Court, but he's come to an agreement with News Group newspapers. Prince Harry is also among several other high-profile figures also suing the paper for alleged unlawful information gathering, which the publisher denies. Now, thousands of UK passengers have had flights cancelled or delayed after Dubai International Airport was closed due to unprecedented flooding after rainfall in the region. The Emirates airline, just one of the airlines cancelling a number of flights between UAE and the UK. British Airways also diverting routes away from the aftermath of those storms, which include flooded roads, metro system flooded and even shopping malls flooded as well. The airport urging passengers to stay away after it was hit by more than a year's rainfall in 24 hours. In fact, animals were lost as well, including this cat, if you're watching on television, clinging to a car door in flood water, but was rescued by Dubai police and put on their boat and taken to safety. Poor wee thing. That's what you call a perfect rescue. And meteorologists are saying more bad weather, including thunderstorms, are on the way, likely to cause severe disruption across the desert city in the coming days. If you're thinking of heading to the Middle East, think again. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
There is a campaign by what appears to be mostly middle-aged and elderly middle-class left-wingers to close the Bibby Stockholm barge. They say it's like a prison ship, that it's inhumane and human beings shouldn't be forced to live in those conditions. These include people like the Portland Global Friendship Group. Now, they have a link to the website freemovement.org.uk on their Facebook page, and they work very closely with immigration barristers who many people believe are little more than activists in a wig. You've got Stand Up to Racism Dorset and the usual bunch at Care for Calais. They're all piping up, OK? Well, GB News has come into possession of videos that appear to be taken by asylum seekers on the barge. Now, remember, this is the supposedly inhumane floating prison that we're talking about here. As you can see, there appears to be quite a happy bunch of young men dancing, playing pool and relaxing. Now, obviously, the experience is different for everyone, but they seem in good spirits there. You can see that is the inside of the Bibby Stockholm because there were videos taken from inside it before it opened. There is also a place where they can watch films and they can drink cans of Red Bull as well. Yeah, I mean, this looks a lot like the video room previously advertised on the ship, doesn't it? So there they are. This is a taxpayer-funded bus service as well that allows the Bibby Stockholm residents to go into the town. Now, on the same Snapchat account that posted the previous videos, all right, there is also this video recording. The video itself appears to show the inside of a gun and knife shop around the Weymouth area. Now, we know that that shop exists and that it is in the vicinity near the Bibby Stockholm barge, but we cannot verify whether that video was taken by someone who's living on the Bibby Stockholm barge. It was simply posted on the same Snapchat account. Well, none of this seems particularly inhumane or prison-like, does it? Especially not that last video. Another video on that account appears to have been taken from inside a cocktail bar. Now, it may be that that video was taken by an individual before he was moved to the Bibby Stockholm. But again, it does beg the question, doesn't it? Are asylum seekers really treated as badly as these middle-class, middle-aged human rights warriors like to believe? Portland Global Friendship Group organise events as well like this with Bibby residents. This is this woodland adventure that they've got, all right? There is a medical facility on the barge as well, which is available. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, went onto the barge and was impressed by the facilities. It had all previously been used to house people like oil workers, etc. Now, look, I am not saying that the barge is a five-star hotel, and I am aware that one individual with mental health issues sadly took their own life on the barge, and it goes without saying that that is a tragedy. But given the videos that I have just shown you there, and the facilities we know are on offer at that site, and the fact that asylum seekers have, in some cases, better access to many public services than arguably most other people in Britain, do you honestly think now that groups like Care for Calais, Portland Global Friendship, actually think the conditions on that ship are inhumane, or is there a political agenda at play here? Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We're joined by the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and journalist and author Rebecca Reid. Mark, some of those videos there don't really look too much like a prison ship to me.
No, that's right. Look, you were very fair, Patrick, in saying, look, it's just a snapshot, it's a snippet, we can't, be totally sure who took these videos and when. But my rough view would be this, that when we're housing asylum seekers, it should be in something like youth hostel accommodation. I mean, remember, this was closed down for Legionnaire's disease. I don't want them in rat-infested sort of places, but that looked pretty high-end at a glance. But the problem to my mind is this. It's not so much the nature of the accommodation, it's the length of time it takes to process all of this, right? So if we close, we open this up because too much burden on hotels at the moment, but it is taking 18 months or so to even process this. You were talking to Greg Smith MP earlier on the show about these sort of things. The problem to my mind isn't so much the quality of the accommodation, it's that we should be able to make a decision in days, not a year and a half.
And look, I want to just really focus on the fact that you've got some of these groups, these local groups, who are, after a public consultation on this, they want to take it to court and all this. It's inhumane. They say the conditions these people are in are inhumane. And, Adam, I think those videos blow the lid off that.
Yeah.
I'm disgusted at what I've just seen. I mean, I've been calling this out, and many others have, for many years. Asylum seekers or illegal immigrants are treated better than some of the people in this country. Now, if I'm a poor person sitting watching the telly at home, I will be depressed looking at that. They get fed 3 times a day. They get a bed, a roof over their heads. They get free healthcare. They get free travel locally. They get free mental health support. Yet you've got people in this country that have to wait months to get their tooth looked at or to see a doctor. This is a disgrace. I want to see these people put in a detention camp with big gates that they can't get out and they can't go to local towns, and that will deter these people crossing the channel. I've had enough, and so has Britain.
Rebecca, it's not inhumane to put people on that, is it, with those facilities on offer and some of the videos I've just shown?
Mark is absolutely right. It's not about the facilities. When they got that boat, were they supposed to be like, that sofa's too nice, take it out, that telly's too big, take it out? That would have been stupid. The issue is it's inhumane because of the amount of time it takes to process, and that's bad for everyone. It's bad because it costs money to host them. It's bad because they can't get on with their lives. The issue is that it's inhumane to leave people in limbo for 18 months.
But
sort out the processing.
That's not really what's being... I get what you're saying, absolutely.
Well, they're too happy, turn the music off.
argued by the likes of that Portland Global Friendship Group.
Correct.
Or they are fundamentally saying, oh my gosh, look at these poor people, they're cooped up and they're treated like...
There are plenty of people on the left. And also, by the way, I think it's really bad that we keep saying middle-aged, elderly. Just because somebody's middle-aged or elderly does not mean that their opinion is any less valid.
No,
but
I'm
specifically, I know, but we shouldn't use middle-aged in a derogatory way because it's coming for you.
Just a description.
But anyway, my point is, I think there are people in this country who want to see these people suffer, who don't like to see people dancing and having a good time. But the thing is, in Wormwood Scrubs,
they shouldn't be here, most of them.
In Wormwood Scrubs, they have Christmas dinner on Christmas Day. I think that video is probably from Eid. People have an ability to find small joys in any circumstance. Just because they're surviving doesn't mean that it's okay.
The video at the cocktail bar,
which is definitely not taken in this country. You can hear it's non-English language music in the background.
We've found the cocktail bar.
Where?
We know where it is. Well, I'm not going to reveal it here on air, but
we don't know that was taken when they were in Bibby, and I don't know that was taken here.
The point here goes back to your point, Patrick. Look, I've got some sympathy with what Rebecca's saying. I don't think you should deliberately rip out the television just to be harsher. But you're quite right, Patrick, that it's difficult from what we've seen to describe those conditions as inhumane. And to do so seems to me pretty preposterous. Those are not inhumane conditions.
I don't think anyone... I think that the Legionnaire's disease thing was inhumane.
That was dealt with, obviously. Get off the ship.
Let's remember, these charities and these lawyers have, in the past, have tried to say that living on water, you know, is some sort of bad thing for them when they've just come across the channel in a dinghy. Now,
well, they weren't living in the dinghy.
They're not going to be distressed by that. But these charities and these lawyers are the enemy of this country. We cannot accept this amount of people coming over each week, each day. I'd say 90% of these people are not refugees or asylum seekers.
How do you know that?
They are illegal immigrants that are trying to play our system. And
Where
again,
do you get
if you speak to most people in any high road, they've had enough of this.
Can I just ask, Mark, do you think, in their heart of hearts, the people like some of these charity groups and the people who are, you know, in the local area that are these variety of different community groups, do you think they honestly believe that these people are being kept in inhumane conditions? Or is it political?
I think it's about social virtue signalling, Patrick.
Agreed.
That it's the equivalent of saying, I don't watch GB News and I hate the Daily Mail. That you join a campaign group to say, I'm just signalling that I care about the, you know, asylum seekers and people from another race.
Gary
really
Lineker
about
syndrome.
That. So, yeah,
being a nice person, some people might call it.
But it seems to me such an
all those horrid show-offs being kind and doing charity work. What are they like? Virtue signalling.
It's being disingenuous. If you could really show pictures of, you know, rat-infested accommodation, evidence that people were not being fed, that would be one thing. But it seems to me on the evidence...
Somebody killed himself because living there was so awful.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a tragic suicide. Patrick touched on that. But I can't really see here how somebody could say, hand on heart, that this looks inhumane.
But
it just doesn't.
But it's not inhumane because the sofas aren't comfortable enough. It's inhumane because it's an inhumane situation to live in.
But if some of these more local groups or charity groups were maybe arguing that, then that would be one thing. I'm sure they do argue.
Lots of them do argue that.
But the idea that these people are being kept in horrible conditions there themselves, I'm just sorry, but I just don't think it's true, and I think we've just managed to prove that with some of this footage tonight. But anyway, right, coming up, the Rwanda bill shambles, on brand, continues after the House of Lords did the unthinkable and delayed the bill even further. I will bring you all of the details after a dramatic day in Parliament. Plus, what do you think happens next after this e-scooter driver piles into a grandmother? Ah, yes, but next, the head-to-head. Following the bombshell cast review, should the former chief executive of the LGBT charity Stonewall, Baroness Hunt, lose her peerage?
So the controversial decision is, do you let Sarah take a puberty blocker pre-puberty? And the medical view is yes, you do. So, in fact, it's pretty safe.
Hang on a minute, is that true? No. Campaigner Simon Edge duels with the founder and CEO of See Change Happen, Joanne Lockwood. That's a debate, and it's next.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I wonder, is this the fundamental distinction we need to make between Islam, which is a private religion people may practice freely amongst themselves, and Islamism, when you try and place those values upon other people, place that way of being, force it on people who don't want it?
Tom, I have been very much clear about this thing that Islam is a religion and people are free to follow that religion in the UK, in a free Western society. So we have no problem with people following their religion as long as it is not being imposed onto the wider society. And when you talk about drawing a distinction between Islam and Islamism, people like me, you and me, we are drawing that distinction. We're trying to maintain that distinction. But if you look at the commentator from the Muslim community, some commentator, they would like to blur this line and they would ask you, what is Islamism? Where does it exist? Sorry, it does exist. We see it. And the teacher, this incident is an epitome of that kind of, ideology being prevalent, in our society.
Khadija, do you worry that these views are typical for some sections of society? Do you think that there's a problem with some Muslim men, that they have perhaps views that we don't consider to be British values?
There are certain readings of religion which are misogynistic, which are discriminatory, which are homophobic. We need to be honest about it. We need to be calling it out whenever we hear these kind of views. It's been a long time that we are letting these kind of ideologies crawling in, spreading tentacles in British society, and we are just ignoring it in the name of respecting people's culture and religion. You are not suppressed in the UK.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Jubber, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubber and Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Tomorrow's newspaper front page is up next in my press pack, but first it is time for the head-to-head. OK, so campaigners are calling for the former chief executive of LGBT charity Stonewall to be stripped of her peerage following the bombshell release of the Cass Review. More than 12,000 people now have signed a petition demanding Baroness Ruth Hunt of Bethnal Green is expelled from the House of Lords for her, quote, deeply damaging conduct in promoting puberty blockers. The petition was launched on Saturday and it says Stonewall's irresponsible, deceitful and self-interested behaviour has caused untold havoc. We believe its chief executive at the time, Ruth Hunt, should take responsibility. Just as a little reminder for everybody, the Cass Review, published last week, concluded that vulnerable young children confused about their gender were given harmful puberty blockers based on weak evidence built on shaky foundations. But this is what Baroness Hunt said previously about giving kids puberty blockers.
What happens is they then go to secondary school, and Michael, who's been presenting as Sarah for all of their primary schools, suddenly goes into secondary school. And in secondary school, it becomes much harder. So the controversial decision is, do you let Sarah take a puberty blocker pre-puberty? And the medical view is yes, you do. So in fact, it's pretty safe.
Oh, it's outrageous, that, isn't it? Baroness Hunt told the Times newspaper over the weekend that she trusted the experts, something she regretted. But what do you think? Following the cash report, should the former chief exec of Stonewall, Baroness Hunt, lose her peerage? gbnews.com/your say is where you can go to have your say, or tweet me at GBNews, and while you're there, vote in our poll. But first, to do battle on this, I'm joined now by author Simon Edge. So the man who first launched this petition and founder and CEO of SEE Change. See Change Happen, I think I should say. Charity. Joanne Lockwood, apologies. Right, OK, Simon, I'll start with you. This report, then. Do you actually seriously think now that the Baroness should lose her peerage?
Yeah, well, I launched this petition on Saturday, and I was thinking of... Cast your mind back, Patrick, to Fred Goodwin. Do you remember Fred Goodwin? Sir Fred Goodwin, in the noughties, was the boss of the world's biggest bank, and he got a knighthood for it. And then the bank crashed, RBS, and it nearly tanked the economy, and his knighthood was taken away. Paula Venables, earlier this year, who ran the post office, got the CBE, and then it turned out that she had been persecuting postmasters, knowing that they hadn't done anything, and her CBE was removed. Both of those people were given honours because of the job that they had been doing. Ruth Hunt was given a much bigger honour. She is now, at the age of 39, she was elevated to the House of Lords, which makes her a legislator for life. And she got the job entirely because she ran Stonewall. She'd worked there for 14 years, barely had any other job. And now that we know, that clip was brilliant that you played, because what she said at the Oxford Union in May 2019, puberty blockers are safe, we now know not to be true. The reverse was true.
Let's park that because I'll come back to you. Joanne, I mean, it wasn't just true. It wasn't just untrue what she said there. I mean, it was dangerous, right? And, it's all very well and good saying, I believe the experts. I mean, how hard did she look? The Cash Review spoke to the experts, looked at it, and it was pretty clear. I mean, some would say, not me, but some would say that individual actually has a serious, serious case to answer.
I think you're looking at a different Cash Review to the one I've seen. Cash Review I've seen is not saying these are dangerous. They're saying that they're not proven. I think we've been prescribing puberty blockers safely for many, many years, but up to 40 years, many countries in the world have been doing that as well.
No, sorry, and I will let you answer this. Why don't they release, then, the evidence of what's happened to the some 9,000 people who went through the puberty blockers from a variety of different NHS trusts that they are trying to hide? I mean, you can't whitewash this Cash Review, surely.
It's very, very easy to have a biased perspective on this incident. Many people read this review and they see many different stories that result from it. The Cash Review does not recommend that all treatment of transgender young people and children ceases completely. What they recommend is more evidence needs to be gathered, more studies need to take place. Say again?
She said it was safe. She said the medical expert.
Puberty blockers are still being prescribed. Puberty blockers are still being prescribed on licence to young children who have precocious puberty. That is not ceasing. What is ceasing is being using them as treatment for gender dysphoria or gender incongruence. But they're still being prescribed to young children today. For precocious puberty.
If they were dangerous, Simon, where was Stonewall on that?
Let me finish. If they were dangerous, why are they still being prescribed for certain cases for young children?
No, I'll just tell you, that's a ridiculous thing to say, because what this is about was the fact that they were being given out potentially like candy in the Wild West. You've said there, openly said that they were being given to people with neurodiverse problems, OK? That was not being...
I didn't say neurodiverse. You said neurodiverse. I didn't say that.
Right, OK, look, stop it, all right? Simon, where are you on this? I mean, this idea now that this woman could still have a peerage surely is a bit ridiculous.
Well, I mean, let's get back to... I mean, Cass specifically said there is... The evidence is weak for all of the treatments that are being handed out, that are being given to young children, distressed young people. And I think, the point that this is not particularly a punishment for Ruth Hunt. It is more that the reward she was given is completely inappropriate, considering the havoc that she has caused. And for me, the killer thing was that there was a report in the Times on Saturday which it wasn't a revelation, it was known already, but it gave a lot of attention to the fact that a campaigning group called Transgender Trend put some materials into schools where there was a massive rise in particularly young girls presenting as saying that they were trans, they were in the wrong body. And Transgender Trend said that evidence is very weak that puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones work, and there's very little evidence about the side effects. We just don't know what we're giving these people. And furthermore, that if you socially transition kids, that's to say you treat them as the opposite sex, they will then go into medical pathways which will be dangerous for them. This is exactly what Cass has said, but Ruth Hunt, the head of Stonewall, issued statements saying these materials should be shredded.
Right, and that's the point, right? And these are the points. Joanne, you're confronted by that. How on earth can this person still remain in office and not have any kind of apology really dished out there, just to say, I believe the experts, passing the buck? There was absolute certainty in what she was saying, and people's lives will have been ruined.
Well, even as we've just heard, there is still uncertainty. There's no categorical evidence that these treatment paths are dangerous. There is evidence that we need to look further. We need to set out the guidelines as per Cass to do proper studies, do tests, do examine the evidence.
What should have been done before it was being given to kids, Joanne? No? Do what should have been done?
I am also horrified that the NHS were not acting in a proper way. I think we all have concerns that these studies should have been in place, the trials should have been carried out, and I was probably acting in good faith, believing that medical professionals were doing this in good faith. Now the Cass reports come out, calling out the question, let's push this forward as per the Cass review to do proper studies, trials, under license, with medical supervision, support families, aid people who feel that gender transition wasn't right for them through detransition pathways. Let's do all of that and recommendations.
And the pressure that Stonewall put on employers, the pressure that Stonewall put on wider society
Stonewall,
as well.
like many advocacy charities and advocacy-oriented organisations, are giving a perspective to allow people, gay, bi, trans, lesbian, whatever they may be, to support them and create environments where they can work and live in peace.
And how were they towards people who disagreed with them, Joanne? Were they all right? Were they nice? They just accepted that, didn't they? And they moved on.
Well, you can look at my Twitter feed. You can look at the comments that will be on my Twitter feed after tonight. I don't get nice comments from people. People bombard me with hate. So I don't think trans people are any more hateful than the other side. We live in a world with divisive politics, left versus right. We're always on the edges. We're not trying to have centrist conversations. We need to bring this into the middle ground, have sensible conversations, not using bias or negative rhetoric.
This is a try. I'm sorry, Joanne. Look, you seem lovely, but I've been sick all week and last week. People, I'm not including yourself in this, but people who did make this discussion incredibly toxic and cancel people and ruin people's lives. Trying to now lecture people on how toxic the situation came and call for calm. They were not calling for calm at the time. But look, both of you, thank you very, very much. We will talk again. Author Simon Edge there, the man who launched this petition, and the founder and CEO of See Change Happen charity, Joanne Lockwood. Look, we did approach Baroness Hunt for comment, and she failed to get back to us. So what do you think? Should Baroness Hunt lose her peerage? 97% of you think that she should lose her peerage. 3% of you say that she shouldn't. Coming up, Rishi Sunak stabs his predecessor firmly in the back.
I did have the stomach to argue out loud about her economic policies, had the conviction to say that they were wrong.
Liz Truss, a victim of the deep state. We've got information to share about the unelected agents having a huge amount of influence at the heart of government. Plus, will someone address the elephant on the streets of Montana? Oh, yes, there we go. But the House of Lords, of course, as well, have blocked and delayed his Rwanda bill. That's Rishi Sunak's. Once again, we cover this massive political story alongside the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, so stay tuned.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening. Temperatures dropping away tonight. It's going to be a cold start tomorrow. Much of the south will stay fine, but further north, some rain and cloud moving in, thanks to this little area of low pressure that's drifting south. Ahead of that, we've had a couple of weather fronts bringing some rain today, particularly for Northern Ireland. That's now spreading south across parts of Pembrokeshire, Devon and Cornwall, but clearing through this evening. Further showers across eastern England, they'll steadily fade as well. And where we've got the clear skies, southern Scotland, northwest England, Wales, a hint of blue on the chart, suggesting there will be a frost, certainly in the countryside. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing, but certainly a chilly start to Thursday. For many, a bright sunny start. There could be some showers early on across Kent. They should fade, but rain will creep into the Highlands of Scotland, the Western Isles first thing, and that'll spread across most of Scotland by lunchtime. Parts of the north and east of Northern Ireland seeing some rain, and through the afternoon turning damp over northern England and North Wales. But much of the south will stay dry and bright. We could reach 15 in London, a brighter day across East Anglia. Cooler further north with the winds picking up and those brisk winds, then a feature of the weather on Friday as well. Friday, broadly speaking, a mixture of sunshine and showers, a duller day across the southeast and a much wetter day across East Anglia compared to tomorrow. Feeling chilly again with that wind. Much of Northern Ireland, Scotland having a drier day, but still on the fresh side, 8 to 14 degrees.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubber and Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight, and it is time to bring you the very first look at tomorrow's front pages. Let's do it. Here's the Metro. Deluged in Dubai. Thousands of British travellers have been stranded in Dubai. There we go. OK, let's go to the Eye. Israel will defy plea for restraint and strike Iran, Cameron reveals. Biden may seek to revive Iran nuclear deal. So, yeah, this is the news that Netanyahu has rebuffed David Cameron's advice to show caution and will make his own decisions. Let's go to The Guardian. Brexit blamed as UK drug shortages put lives at risk. Drug shortages are the new normal, apparently, in Brexit Britain. They also have that story about Benjamin Netanyahu rejecting calls for restraint. We go to the Daily Mail now. Tories trail Labour on defence, tax, migration and even Brexit. But exclusive poll for the Mail finds 45% still don't want a Starmer government. There's a picture story here as well of Prince Harry. Goodbye, Britain. Harry registers America as his official home. The Sun, American Idol Harry. Prince is officially a US resident. Now he's cut all ties with Britain. Prince Harry has officially registered himself as an American resident. Apparently, he's listed the US as his new country in his records. There's also another story on the front of the Sun here. Not deported, free to rape. An asylum seeker whose deportation was blocked by lawyers has admitted to raping a 15-year-old girl. He's from the Congo originally, and he once protested outside a detention centre with a migrants are not criminals sign. So, you know, there we go. OK. Yeah, all right. Well, look, I've got my panel here, as ever, and joining me is Director of Popular Conservatives Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. You know, I am actually going to focus in on that front page just quickly here. Before we delve into the deep stay. So a failed asylum seeker whose deportation was blocked when do-gooder cabin crew refused to fly him home has pleaded guilty. You know, he's posing with a sign saying migrants are not criminals. I mean, this is why people shouldn't block deportation flights, Mark, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is horrific. Look, I mean, you might say it's unlucky, but this is proof, Patrick, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, isn't it? I mean, what must these people now be thinking? James cleverly makes a very good point that, you know, they suddenly decide to intervene, possibly with decent motives, I suppose, but the consequences here have been absolutely dreadful.
Let's remember, we've got an incoming government, a Labour government, who many of their MPs wrote a letter to stop deportation flights. Now, we are getting hundreds of these people coming over on dinghies and in lorries every day. We don't know their pasts or what their intentions are. You know, families, they're in your town.
I just think
we cannot carry on going on like this.
People think they're doing the right thing, don't they? And they think, oh, I've done my bit. And then, you know, I just wonder how they feel, Rebecca, when they read stories like that. And there's a 15-year-old girl, you know, whose life will never be the same again now.
Yeah, there's not a lot to be said, really. Like, a 15-year-old girl got raped. There is no defence, there is no explanation. I think this person should go to prison in this country because I think that he will rape other people because he is a rapist. I maintain that opinion. I think that he's dangerous wherever he goes and he probably should be locked up for the rest of his life.
All right, look, let's move it on a bit now, because there's been rather a lot of talk about the deep state, all right? Well, Rishi Sunak stuck the knife into Liz Truss at PMQs earlier today.
Mr. Speaker, when my predecessor was running for leader, to use his words, I did have the stomach to argue out loud about her economic policies, had the conviction to say that they were wrong.
Well, Rishi Sunak may gloat, but many would argue that Truss and Kwarteng's mini-budget never stood a chance against what some call the deep state. So for those of you unfamiliar with the term, the group is described as an anonymous bunch of bureaucrats who wield much more power and influence than most people realise. And Mark Littlewood joins us now. Now, you believe that there is a cabal of unelected agents who hold a lot of power behind the scenes, don't you?
Yeah, I do, Patrick. Now, look, it's quite difficult to even get talking about this without me putting my tinfoil hat on, right? Because you sound a bit bananas, don't you? Everybody thinks we live in a democracy, we elect a government, OK, maybe the party changes its leader, but, you know, the politicians decide what happens. I think, unfortunately, over the past quarter of a century or so, probably really started with Blair, a bit earlier than Blair, conceivably, Major perhaps, we've allowed to grow up a whole network of quangos, quasi-autonomous, non-governmental organisations, which are supposed to be independent and expert, but actually are increasingly wielding more power than our elected politicians. Now, elected politicians screw up. They make bad decisions often, but they can be kicked out of office. But I'll give you some examples of the sort of groups that I mean. The Independent Bank of England, the whole idea was making it independent would suddenly mean that it was going to have a satisfactory monetary policy. They missed their targets for inflation month after month after month after month, and no head rolls. And it's damn near impossible to get rid of the Governor of the Bank of England. Never elected, and very difficult to depose. I guess, Patrick, most of your viewers would not have heard of a man called Richard Hughes. He is the head of the Office for Budget Responsibility. I hold him no personal animus, but his job is to tell the Chancellor of the Exchequer how much fiscal headroom he has. That's to say, how much can you cut tax by, or you know, how much more spending can you do? Essentially, you've got Richard Hughes telling Jeremy Hunt, our Chancellor, how much pocket money he's got. Or take Natural England, run by Tony Juniper, who's a former head, I believe, of Friends of the Earth. You know, its job, it sounds rather nice, to protect nature and the rest of it. By some estimates, Tony Juniper and his outfit have stopped the building of 150,000 homes. Now, you may approve or disapprove of these policies, but I want these policies enacted by elected politicians, not by a network of 500 quangos, who I think now probably have more power than the government itself.
This is a genuine question. If you had that, the same revolving door that we've had with politicians, if you had that for every single office, wouldn't it be impossible to get anything done?
No, I mean, you get things done by voting them through Parliament.
But
That's how you
surely
get
one
things
of the
done.
great things about the civil service, for instance, is that you get a kind of continuity of care. So as governments change and things are up, and there's a huge amount of upheaval, there are people who know where the paper is kept and what we did in 1973.
I'm all in favour of, you know, the civil service being functional and knowing where the paper is kept and how the database system works and what's the process by which we get A to B. But I'm not in favour of these people making policy decisions. No. And, you know, the Bank of England and the OBR, I would now argue, are as influential, if not more influential, than our Chancellor of the Exchequer. Now, if you want to elect Richard Hughes Chancellor of the Exchequer, be my guest. But in the absence of that, Jeremy Hunt should not be hemmed in.
I'm going to bring Adam in on this because, you know, look, you're the voter, you're the punter, right? And you probably are not heard of half of these people. You do elect people. You elect them to try and get things through Parliament. They get those things through Parliament. You assume those things are going to happen, and it appears as though there's people behind the scenes blocking them.
Again, I'll even go back to, say, COVID. We had the Tony Blair Institute having influence over our COVID policy and having meetings. So that's a former Prime Minister and his institute of paid lackeys telling our government what they should do, and the government listening, people like Michael Gove lapping it up. Now, you see that in America with, like, Obama's and the Clintons. There are very, very powerful people above our Prime Minister and our elected officials that seem to be pulling strings. You've got billionaires like Bill Gates that fly in and advise our government. Why? He's a computer salesman that's made it big. Why is people like Bill Gates influencing policy in our country? That is what I call the deep state and the cabal of the world.
I'm just going to park that because I don't think I have time. But I will specifically say on this idea of a deep state, I find one of the conservative values that I enjoy is that you rely on yourself and you are your own problem. And it's so unconservative of Liz Truss to be like, rather than saying I did a bad job when I screwed up, she's going, it wasn't my fault, it was because of all these people. I couldn't possibly have made it. It's so weak-willed. If you were a good enough politician, you would have been able to make it. But this whining about nobody helped me, nobody let me win, it's so childish.
Days. This isn't all on Liz Truss, and
if she were a better,
there were nefarious actors at play.
Who?
Well, I mean, I would say, an example here in what happened to Truss. And look, you might disapprove of her policies or even believe that she didn't navigate the political landscape with a deftness of touch. But just before the mini-budget, the Bank of England only increased interest rates by a smidgen. They did not follow the US Federal Bank. That, I think, was a policy disaster, which led to the fall of the pound more than the mini-budget, for which no heads have rolled.
Mark, if you were Prime Minister, you would have just done exactly what you just did. You would have stood up and said that, and people would have listened and understood. Yeah. And she is an idiot, so she did not stand up and say that. And if you don't communicate, if you don't communicate things to people, they can't know things.
She couldn't affect the interest rates.
That was stupid of her. But she could tell people, you just did it. You're not Prime Minister.
All right, OK. And, yeah, I don't think it's fair to call the former Prime Minister of this country an idiot, to be fair enough. But anyway. Now, unlike Dumbo, not all elephants can use their wings to fly out of the circus. This one escaped using old-fashioned methods. Meet Viola, who escaped from Jordan World Circus in Montana after being startled by a backfiring car while she was being washed by her handlers. After closing roads, startling locals and defecating on a lawn just before she was caught, Viola safely made it back to the circus by her handlers. A petrol station worker who spotted the big beast said, "It's not every day you see an elephant walking down Harrison Avenue in Butte, Montana." It's certainly not, random American individual. Coming up, Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf is pushing for a new misogyny bill which will protect men identifying as trans women. Look, wait till you see what he tweeted, all right? But that is when I crown today's greatest Bristol Union jackass. Plus, I can't work out who's worse. Is it Lycra lout cyclists or e-scooter riders? Can you guess what happens next? But before all of that, Sir Keir Starmer has promised to sack anyone caught briefing against his advisers and dismiss claims that a boys' club is in charge of the Labour Party. More front pages coming your way very, very shortly.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
J.K. Rowling has accused politicians of snuggling up to trans campaigners. The Harry Potter author has called for an investigation into why political parties are embracing the language of pro-trans groups. So is it time to ditch campaign groups such as those? Well, welcome again to my clashers, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza, also businessman and activist Adam Brooks.
I think the Cass report is really welcome. I think there's been a huge amount of agreement, including from some trans rights campaigners, that there's an awful lot of good in the Cass report. I think that I'm more concerned about mermaids, which is currently under a Charity Commission investigation, and some of the reports, if they're to be believed, like sending out chest binders, are more alarming. I think on Stonewall, which has done such great work over the past 30 years on LGBT rights.
It said 2-year-olds could be trans. Now, that is one of the most horrifying things I read today. Actually, J.K. Rowling tweeted that out there. To say that a 2-year-old can think that they can be another gender when my 4-year-old still thinks she's Elsa on some days. You know, there's no common sense, and to me it's
very badly phrased, Adam, I agree.
It's very sinister that these people actually believe that these kids want to change gender, and unfortunately out there are parents that almost see a trans kid as a fashion accessory now, and I think this whole agenda has pushed on people that this is normal to change gender, and we have to push back. And as I said earlier, to be trans is not normal.
Well, I don't agree with that
extreme.
phrasing. I think it's a big step, Adam, but there are clearly people throughout history who have been
But it's
trans.
not normal behaviour, is it?
I think as far as children are concerned, children need to be given the space to explore the world, and that can include experimenting with, breaking previous gender stereotypes. That doesn't mean that people should be sort of labelled at the age of 2, which I completely disagree with.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight, and I have got more front pages for you. Let's do it. OK, it's the Times. Hopes of rate cuts suffer blow, inflation falling more slowly than expected. The other headline there is Tory MP demanded thousands of pounds from party aid. A Conservative MP is under investigation over allegations that he misused campaign funds. And we've got some synchronised swimmers as well. Let's go to the Daily Telegraph. Angela Rayner faces new homes tax questions. Dozen-strong police team investigating Labour deputy leader. Story at the bottom of the Telegraph here. Scottish primary schools will have pupils as LGBT champions. Well, hey, and anyone who tells you there's any kind of indoctrination taking place north of the border is obviously wrong. Right, I'm joined again by my press pack. We've got the director of PopCons, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, look, a group of leading doctors have called for parents to be banned from smacking their kids. They say it leads to violence and mental health issues. It's already out of the question in Wales and in Scotland. Mark, would you smack kids?
Yeah, I haven't got any kids, so it doesn't apply to me. I think this is too restrictive. There is clearly a proportionality thing here. You can't beat your kids with, a cat of 9 tails or whatever. But I think to go so far as to say, a clip on the backside to say you mustn't
only
do
your
that
own
again.
kids, though, presumably.
Yeah. You can't just go out on the streets of London and do it for a laugh. But I think that sort of, very modest discipline is, I think, is acceptable. I don't believe that's disproportionate, and I don't believe that causes mental scarring. I was smacked a few times as a kid by my parents. It probably did me a little bit of good. But that doesn't mean that you should be thrashing them with a whip.
Look, violence against children is a no-no. Yeah. But for me to say that I've never, smacked my kid or tapped him on the backside would be a lie. And I think, probably 80% of parents would agree with me and have done the same. They might not admit it on national television, but there needs to be some sort of discipline at home. I think we're seeing young generations grow up without any discipline at home. And it's showing on the streets and it's showing in schools. They've lost respect. I grew up, I was terrified of the police walking around. I was terrified of upsetting an adult. Now, you've got kids running around calling adults and the police names. There has to be discipline at home. And I think, a little smack on the backside, not violent, is proportionate.
OK, proportionate.
The issue, I think, is that it makes it harder for social services to intervene because you have to prove that it wasn't proportionate force. Different children bruise differently. So it's very, very difficult when there are issues of child abuse. I am vehemently anti-smacking because every expert, every single child psychologist agrees that A, it doesn't really work, it just makes them afraid and angry, and B, it's not fair on them. And also, I used to run a sex magazine and I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of men who all had fetishes for being beaten, and all of them were hit as children, and all of that started in childhood. And I don't want to run the risk.
There are also...
Sorry?
He used to run a sex magazine.
OK, just for the viewers.
I think, there is lived evidence, though, is there not, that being smacked a bit, proportionally, as a child, does not already do any harm. I mean, I do think most people, especially of a certain
would you
age,
say that
most people are all right.
But there are lots of the people used to argue that about hitting your wife or your girlfriend. Why is it different? Why can I hit my daughter and my boyfriend can't hit me? Why is that different?
Please, that is ridiculous.
Because you're in loco parentis to your daughter, you're not in loco parentis to your boyfriend.
Do you know what? My wife could hit me in the face and I would never even raise a hand back to her.
I mean, that's good.
Most
you're right.
men are the same. But there is nothing to link that with smacking your 14-year-old boy on the backside because he's just nicked 20 quid out your wallet or something, then, oh, come on.
But surely you want to address the cause of why that's happening, not just hit them.
Yeah, it might not be the only part of discipline, but it's a bit like saying if you kick your cat off the sofa, it's animal cruelty.
You also shouldn't kick cats.
All right, you push your cat off the sofa.
So I don't think you should hit anyone in your household at all, ever.
OK, fine. Now, look. This is the shocking moment that an e-scooter ploughs into a 67-year-old grandmother, knocking her to the ground in Northamptonshire this month. The police are investigating the collision that left Shirley Smith with persistent back pain and severe bruising all over her body. And to make matters worse, the female e-scooter rider reportedly blamed Shirley for the incident before speeding off. I don't know if we can play that. Can we just go on? Was it through again? Let's see, guys.
Poor Shirley.
Poor Shirley.
Poor Shirley.
I think as it stands, I'm on Team Shirley.
Me too.
I think we're all on Team Shirley.
Whoa, there you go. They shouldn't be on the pavement, should they?
No,
These
I think
e-scooters?
They shouldn't be anywhere.
I think it's illegal to drive on... I might be wrong. Is it illegal to drive on the pavement?
I think it is.
It is illegal. I think they're technically illegal. I think Sadiq said none of them in London full stop, but everyone went, no.
Well, what does Sadiq know?
Oh, right, OK, easy now. OK, so, we're going to have to be really quick with this. Greatest Britain Union Jackass time. Rapido.
My Greatest Britain, Liz Truss. Really shown some guts to come out with a book, expose the deep state, love her all over, you can't ignore her. Thank God that she's actually still contributing to the debate, hasn't just run off to the hills. Former Prime Minister Liz Truss.
Mine is MP Lucy Fraser for calling for the ban of trans women in women's sport. Finally, we are getting somewhere and people are not scared to speak out.
All right, Rebecca.
And the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, who call for the ban on smacking. I think smacking children is fundamentally wrong. OK, all right, strong choices, as ever. I have gone for Lucy Fraser MP, so that's today's Greatest Britain. So there we go. Right, Union Jackass time up.
Well, this is honorary a young Brazilian woman called Erica de Souza Vieira Nunes. She went into the bank with her elderly uncle in a wheelchair and tried to get her elderly uncle to sign a loan form so she could get some money.
We've got the video.
It's absolutely unbelievable. The staff at the bank said that her uncle was looking rather pale, and that was because he was dead.
He's dead.
He was literally dead.
You're joking.
And so she was attempting to get a loan in his name, and he is dead.
She tried. She tried to put the pen in his hand at one point.
And said, "Wake up, Uncle, sign it here." Absolutely unbelievable. But proof that most criminals are actually idiots.
All right, very quickly.
Mine is Humza Yousaf, or Useless, for the new Scottish misogyny bill, which covers men identifying as women.
Yeah, OK, go on then.
Mine's Catherine Bebbelsang. More teaching, fewer headlines, please.
Oh, all right, well, look, today's Union Jackass is Erica de Souza Vieira Nunes for literally wheeling a dead man in and trying to make him sign a document so she could get a loan. And to be honest with you, it doesn't get much worse than that. Right, look, thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening at home. Ben Leo will be with you tomorrow at 9 p.m. I'm off. See you in a bit.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening. Temperatures dropping away tonight. It's going to be a cold start tomorrow. Much of the south will stay fine, but further north, some rain and cloud moving in, thanks to this little area of low pressure that's drifting south. Ahead of that, we've had a couple of weather fronts bringing some rain today, particularly for Northern Ireland. That's now spreading south across parts of Pembrokeshire, Devon and Cornwall, but clearing through this evening. Further showers across eastern England, they'll steadily fade as well. And where we've got the clear skies, southern Scotland, northwest England, Wales, a hint of blue on the chart, suggesting there will be a frost, certainly in the countryside. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing, but certainly a chilly start to Thursday. For many, a bright sunny start. There could be some showers early on across Kent. They should fade, but rain will creep into the Highlands of Scotland, the Western Isles first thing, and that'll spread across most of Scotland by lunchtime. Parts of the north and east of Northern Ireland seeing some rain, and through the afternoon turning damp over northern England and North Wales. But much of the south will stay dry and bright. We could reach 15 in London, a brighter day across East Anglia. Cooler further north with the winds picking up, and those brisk winds then a feature of the weather on Friday as well. Friday, broadly speaking, a mixture of sunshine and showers, a duller day across the southeast and a much wetter day across East Anglia compared to tomorrow. Feeling chilly again with that wind. Much of Northern Ireland, Scotland having a drier day, but still on the fresh side, 8 to 14 degrees.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest prize so far. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
One more story in. Milton Keynes, absolute chaos in the city. 300-odd youths arrested or at least involved in a
stampede.
A stampede.
A stampede.
What's been going on?
A stampede through the...
there we are.
This is the video. So this is a stampede through a shopping centre in Milton Keynes. I think, Amy, you live there, don't you? You live nearby.
For those on radio, we can see literally hundreds, scores of kids.
I think there are about 300 kids.
Are they in school uniform?
Yeah, quite a
yeah. This is as they've broken up from school, presumably.
Security tried to intervene. They've been accused of being heavy-handed. But I think this speaks to the fact that the landscape of youth services has just been decimated, and there's literally nothing for kids.
So hang on, whoa. You think that this has happened because social services have been diluted?
Youth services.
This is because there's no police around, there's no oversight, there's no deterrent, and 300 kids think that they can run through a shopping centre, frightening shoppers out of their lives.
Going to a shopping centre.
Amy, sorry, my kids would not be behaving like that because there's no ping pong available at the local
Aren't your kids like
youth
age
centre.
4 and 5? These are teenagers, and our teenagers are headed into a world where there are no leisure services. There are no
nothing to do with crime. If we up the ante
everything
on basketball, it's not going to stop kids being stabbed on the street.
What creates antisocial behaviour is having nothing to do.
It's lack of discipline in the home, lack of discipline in the home, and lack of policing on the streets, and a judiciary and a penal system that is utterly liberal.
You're going right to the end of the line. What about the preventative measures?
What about the people that these people affect by running through a shopping centre and stampeding? When there's mothers with kids in prams frightened out of their lives, and we're worried about the social services
I'm
aspect
talking about
that's
carrot.
perhaps led to
You're
it.
talking about stick, right?
Yeah. So how long does your solution take to resolve it? Mine takes about 30 seconds. More police, bang them up. Yours...
Russell, should parents be fined?
More police, bang them up.
Absolutely, and the kids should be taken to task.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Good evening, it's 11 o'clock. You're with GB News. In a moment, headliners. But first, let's bring you up to date with the latest news headlines. And the government's flagship illegal migration policy, the Rwanda bill, had another major setback, suffering another defeat in the House of Lords this evening. Peers have maintained pressure on the government over the PM's deportation plan, with continual demands for reassurances in the form of amendments. The House of Lords ignored ministerial calls to back down and again tonight insisted on further revisions to the safety of Rwanda bill. The Home Secretary, James Cleverly, in response said afterwards, "We want to break up the criminal people smuggling gangs and stop the boats. Labour, uncomfortable with tackling immigration, will clearly stop at nothing to stop the planes." In other news today, the UK has signed an agreement with Vietnam to increase cooperation on tackling illegal migration. It comes as Vietnamese nationals overtake others as the predominant nationality on small boat crossings. Vietnamese nationals made up 5% of small boat arrivals last year across the English Channel. That's up from 1% in 2022, according to Home Office figures. The boss of the Post Office was exonerated today following an independent investigation into allegations of bullying. Nick Reed always rejected claims of misconduct. The firm says he has its full backing now to lead the organisation, which continues to fall under the spotlight over the Horizon IT scandal, during which hundreds of sub-postmasters were wrongly convicted of theft and fraud. A 28-year-old man convicted of attempting to murder two elderly worshippers in mosques in what a judge described as horrific attacks has been sentenced to an indefinite hospital order. Mohammed Abkir, who was a paranoid schizophrenic, threw petrol over his victims and then set them on fire outside mosques in Birmingham and in London. The court heard 82-year-old Hashi Adowa and 70-year-old Mohammed Rayaz were chosen at random because Abkir believed they were possessed by evil spirits. Well, one of the victims' sons, Mohammed Rayaz Jr., said his father's attacker should have been sent to prison to face the maximum sentence.
Mohammed Abkar, who set my father on fire, he's not going to serve a prison sentence, but he's going to be going to a hospital, probably get served a 3-course meal and have an evening cup of tea, whereas he should be in a prison, you know, facing, you know, maximum punishment, especially setting two people on fire in two main cities of the United Kingdom. You're talking about London and Birmingham. I mean, how could this happen?
The actor Hugh Grant has settled a legal case against the publisher of The Sun over claims journalists used private investigators to tap his phone and even burgle his house. The actor's lawsuit was one of those eligible to go to trial at the High Court, but he's come to an agreement with News Group newspapers. Prince Harry is among several other high-profile figures also suing the newspaper group for alleged unlawful information gathering, which the publisher denies. Thousands of passengers have had flights cancelled or delayed after the world's second busiest airport, that's Dubai International Airport, was closed following unprecedented rainfall. Emirates cancelled a number of their flights between the UAE and the UK, with British Airways also diverting routes away from the aftermath of the storms, which flooded roads, the metro system and even shopping malls. Dubai received more than a year's average rainfall in just 24 hours. Animals were stranded, including this poor cat who'd found a car door to cling onto, only to be picked up from the floodwaters eventually by the Dubai police in their boat. You could call it a perfect rescue, but meteorologists have bad news. More bad weather is on the way, and it's likely to cause further disruption across the desert city over the coming days. For the latest news, sign up to GB News Alerts, scan the QR code on your screen, or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Time now for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. This is your first look at Thursday's top news stories. I'm Cressida Wetton and I'm joined tonight by amateur comedian and professional hypochondriac. It's Lewis Schaefer.
And the only remaining member of the headliners team who's still prepared to work with him, it's Steve N. Allen.
It's funny because it's true. That's what I like about that intro.
I mean, I will technically still work with you now, but who knows what's going to happen in the next hour.
Well, you know what? I didn't like that introduction because I am a professional hypochondriac. I actually think I'm doing great. That's the problem. The problem is not that I think I'm dying. The thing is I'm doing... All right.
You think you'll look
You've
amazing.
started him off.
I've started him off. Right, come on then. Let's look at those front pages. So the Daily Mail has Tories trail Labour on defence, tax, migration, even Brexit. The Telegraph has Rayner faces new homes tax questions. The Guardian has Brexit blamed as UK drug shortages put lives at risk. And The Times is going with hopes of rate cuts suffer blow. iNews has Israel will defy plea for restraint and strike Iran, Cameron reveals. Finally, The Sun has American Idol Harry, and those were your front pages. OK, kicking off the in-depth look at the front pages, The Sun, Lewis.
The Sun, Royal files his new country. Royal meaning Prince Harry. And it says American Idol Harry because they don't think he does anything. He does a lot of stuff. He spends all day long complaining about his...
That's not what that means.
That's what it means. Idol means he's not doing anything.
Don't they mean, isn't it a play on the show, American Idol?
Yeah, it's a play on the show, but idle means he's not doing anything.
Well, that's true.
Doesn't that mean? I think that's what it means. Anyway.
We're off to a great start.
He says... No, I thought I was right,
Thanks,
you know?
Steve.
I mean, English isn't my first language, so...
That explains a lot. So
it says he's now a resident of the USA, but that doesn't mean he's given up his citizenship yet. He hasn't.
No, but doesn't it mean he's given up being royal, Steve? Isn't that what it means?
Although, well, it turns out this all happened last year anyway.
Right.
So when he was asked to give the keys back to Frogmore Cottage, we don't know the order of events, whether he was like, well, if that's your attitude, I'm registering the USA as my place of residency, actually, thanks. Or he decided, and that's why Charles said, we need the keys back then. You can't have Frogmore and be there. But it's not really doing much royal stuff anyway, is it? The only royal work he does is to use the title. And to have a website that goes on about duchesses and Sussexes and things.
Yeah. Or you could say he's a right royal pain to the royal family. But the fact
or an
is,
idol.
Or, well, he's not, because he's not doing anything, according to this. So you got to be one or the other. Anyway, the point is he's a resident, and you can be a resident anywhere. What's his name? The king who resigned, and then they sent him to the Bahamas or Bermuda to be, you know, the story, before the war or something, and he was in with the Nazis. Who's the guy? He was the king for a short period of time.
If you know who Lewis is talking about, do let us know. Let's move on to the Telegraph, Steve. What have they got?
A couple of stories that are of interest. Rayner faces new homes tax questions. Although, actually, most of this article is Rayner faces exactly the same tax questions as yesterday and last week and all of these ones. She owned a house, sold it, claimed that it was her primary residence and therefore didn't pay capital gains tax. Yeah. This story also mentions that maybe, if the husband did the same, they said they might have had two bites of the cherry if they were both doing it. Again, we've got mights and coulds in there. One thing I do think is interesting in the story, it says, however, married couples cannot legally have two primary residents for tax purposes. Obviously, for tax purposes. But the idea that a married couple can't legally live apart might need changing. Look,
oh, yes, Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah, it's the ideal way to live, isn't it?
I mean, if you were going to get married to somebody like Lewis, I think a second home would be...
In the country.
I mean, ultimately,
in a
you'd
different
save
country.
money on the NHS, wouldn't you, on mental health care? So I think it would be in the taxpayer's interest.
Or if they're going to get married to me, maybe they should find a mental hospital to be living in. What did I just put myself
Yeah, that's our job tonight.
Yeah, sorry about that.
What do I do now? Given I do all my life.
Is that you know, married couples can be separated, but if they're going to file one collective thing, they can't get the benefits from both places. So I disagree with you about that. What the problem with this woman is that she wasn't expecting people to watch her, and she wasn't. Why is that funny? She wasn't expecting people to watch her.
It's funny to me that you thought of that after your career, or during your career, sorry, not after.
Well, it's the same thing here. Louis Schaefer's blowing up, and maybe people are going to be looking at my tax business.
I didn't know you'd ever paid any tax. That's fascinating. OK, there's another story on here. Scottish primary... no, you're supposed to read it, not...
Oh, yeah, this is...
You gonna do it? Yeah, I can do it. Yeah. Scottish primary schools will have pupils as LGBT champions. And I did see that. And do you remember when champions meant winning at a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I hope that's not what this story means, that they're going to be gladiatorially winning. But no, it's going to be support groups and it's money
So
from
the age of 4, they're saying here, asking kids at 4 what their sexuality is. Inappropriate, Lewis?
You know what? I think yes, obviously it's inappropriate, but then again, kids don't know what it means, so it's probably better to ask them at 4 than ask them at 16 when they probably know what it means. They're just asking, like, do you like Johnny? Who's your best friend? They say, are you gay? And they go, no, I want a dog. This is what a 4-year-old...
Do you think it might be OK to just not ask them about their sexuality at all?
It would be nice, but we're not heading in that direction. We're heading in a direction which is basically to destroy all families. And this is part of it, is to take away power from families and put it in the schools. So it's the end.
We're forcing married people to live together. That sounds like not destroying families enough right now.
That's actually a good thing. We should force people to live together. We should...
I look forward to reminding you of that. So let's move on to the Daily Mail. What are they going with, Lewis?
The Daily Mail. The Daily Mail, Tories trail Labour on defence, tax, migration, even Brexit. They trail the Labour on everything, because the fact is the Tories are toast. And this is the Daily Mail, which is basically used to be like a Tory newspaper, did it not?
Don't you think? Yeah, I think it's leans that way. Don't you think that sometimes in polls people vote in a kind of protesty, stroppy kind of? Well, it doesn't mean that's what they actually think. They're punishing.
Yeah, normally as you get nearer to a general election, that's less, isn't it? The protest vote is the by-election thing, or the local election type thing. As you get nearer to the actual... I mean, it's not looking good, is it? The survey says that the Tories are trailing Labour on everything, including probably conservatism. So they've done so badly.
Especially conservatism.
Especially as we go around here. But there's a bit here that says they try and bring it back, this Tory newspaper. But exclusive poll for Mail finds 45% still don't want Starmer for government. Well, does that mean 55% don't want Rishi? I mean, it feels like there's another stat in there that is not put on their front page, which probably isn't good for them.
Fair. OK, finally, ending with The Guardian, Steve, what are they leaving?
Brexit blamed as UK drug shortage puts lives at risk. Lack of medicines for a range of illnesses is the new normal. And there's a couple of things in here. Brexit's right at the start of that headline, and that's where people will start to argue. It's probably the case that if we hadn't have had Brexit, then maybe the procurement could have been easier with less paperwork. It's definitely the case that we knew this was happening, so it should have been foreseen and done something about. There's a slight giveaway that this comes from Mark Dayan, who's the lead author at the Nuffield Trust's Brexit programme. So, of course, it was going to get a mention. I think that's probably why it stirred into the story. The story, if we ignore Brexit, is it's really bad. We want to be able to have access to drugs to treat people. There's a particular shortage in ADHD drugs. And then in the next paragraph, it says, our helpline's been inundated with calls. Yeah, probably from, like, one guy.
Lewis, any thoughts on this? You like to think about
thoughts on this is... It's two non-issues, which is one is that there's not a single drug out there that actually saves lives. Sorry. Every single drug is completely unnecessary. You change your diet, you're home
OK, I'm just going to push back on that. Some drugs are necessary. So that's the front pages looked at. Time for a break now. But join us in part 2 for changes to Scotland's net zero plans, a big payout for Hugh Grant, and some mad weather in Dubai. See you soon.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Do you mind if I ask you a little bit about Sebastian? It really amazes me how a mother who can lose a child in such a shocking and unexpected way, so little, so precious, can then turn that grief into something so positive. How did you find the strength to get up, get a camera crew, as you say, travel to the other side of the world and investigate all of this?
I was angry at Sebastian for dying. You know, you feel like saying, God, 32 years later, and I can still get very, very upset about it. I was angry that that while he was born and lived with me and slept and then died, they were actively campaigning in New Zealand to try and stop this happening because they had a very high cot death rate there. They had the lady, the Anne Diamond, if you like, of New Zealand, a television presenter called Judy Bailey, went on telly every night and said, if you're just about to put your baby down to sleep, put him on his or her back, not the tummy, and this will help. And their cot death rate plummeted. And I went out to New Zealand and met her, and it was anger that drove me to come back and demand that we have the same advert here, the same campaign. And of course, I got all this complete nonsense from the Department of Health saying, you know, oh, young mothers do not watch television, I was told. In other words, while New Zealand mums were being told how to save their babies' lives, we actively denied British mums that advice during the time that Sebastian and others were dying.
And the other point, I suppose, to make is it's helpful to educate all generations, because when I had my babies, my mum would say, oh, he's not settling, just stick him on his tummy, he'll be much happier. That's what we did with you. And we had to say, well, things have changed, and, you know, but it's about educating everybody, because it's not just the mums that get their hands on the babies.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Jubber, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubber and Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Cressida Wetton, and one of the finest comedians in the UK, but one of the worst dietitians, Lewis Schaefer. And the man with the most mysterious middle name in the UK, it's Steve N. Allen. Still don't know. Beginning with the Daily Record, Lewis, and ambitious environmental targets set by Nicola Sturgeon have been scuppered by something no one could have foreseen: winter weather in Scotland.
Yes. Well, this is Scotland to ditch key climate change target, and Scotland was known as the #1 anti-climate people, and the fact is that they wanted to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 75%, which is the best way to do that is to basically ship all the industry out of the country. And that's what they've been doing. That's what Britain's been doing. They want decarbonization. The fact is the climate's impossible. We were just up there. We were just up in Scotland.
We
and it is cold and miserable. And that's
it was
why...
frosty when you walked in the room, wasn't it?
Oh, no, the love for me is unbelievable. And among the Scottish people. My ex-wife was Scottish.
You've never mentioned it. Steve, any thoughts on this?
I was just going to say, I didn't read the bit about your ex-wife in here, and yet somehow we're talking about it. Yeah, they're ditching an unachievable target, which actually maybe we should be saying good rather than clinging to an unachievable target. It's not the same as saying climate change isn't real or any of those things, but people will spin it kind of, oh, look, you can't even do that. The reason they had an unachievable target is because the Greens have a role in governing, and they just had like a bidding war on, well, we want it by 2050, we want it by 2045, we want it by next week. And you do that eventually, you end up with a system that can't work. So I'd bring in the ones that save us money first, is the way I look at it.
Definitely. Stop trying to show off to Greta.
Or maybe it is crazy for this whole climate change. I know that people out there are watching this and saying, oh, not climate change again, because they know it's totally ridiculous, especially in a place like Scotland, which is freezing cold. People will die. People who support climate change legislation are killing people.
Well, they are certainly making energy a lot more expensive. The Guardian next, and a story about Hugh Grant feeling it in his fingers, feeling it in his wallet, Steve.
Hugh Grant settles court claim against Sun publisher for enormous sum. So he was part of a case against the Sun about them using unlawful techniques to get information about him and some others, and he's been campaigning about press standards as well. So it was shocking to hear that he'd taken the money to let the court case go away. Oh, what a letdown. But then when you read into it, the detail is about the way our legal system works. If it's a civil action, if you don't accept the amount of money you've been offered as a settlement and the damages is slightly, any amount less than that, you're liable to both sides' legal fees. So Murdoch goes off, runs up a massive legal bill, offers an amount of money that I'm sure that there has been advice that no court will offer that amount in damages. So actually, I kind of feel sorry for Hugh here. Even a Hollywood actor can't afford to pay the £10 million worth of legal fees. And, you know, he's in love, actually. He gets repeat fees every Christmas. And he still can't take on a billionaire. We've got a system where, of course, you can't take on billionaires.
No, but he's planning to use the money, isn't he, that he is going to get to kind of further this cause. He's a bit of a campaigner for this now.
Yeah.
What do you think, Liz? Because I was thinking you would have loved to have had your medical records hacked, wouldn't you? You're always trying to get people to be interested in them.
I'm hacked. I don't want them to be hacked. I'll send it to you. Anybody's interested in what I'm doing, I'll send it to you. Is that it is true, because he's going to lose like 10 million, because Rupert Murdoch is unbelievable. I mean, he beat down Johnny Depp in this country. I mean, one of the many things I love about this country is not the libel laws, basically.
One of the many things you love is not the libel laws. Lewis Schaefer there. Moving to Thursday's Telegraph, I thought that magic white powder would have been having a stimulating effect, but apparently Costa Rica and Colombia have an even bigger problem with inactivity than the UK, Lewis.
Yeah, well, this is one of those stories. UK suffering worst labour crisis in the West. They find out that a lot of people in England don't want to work, and there's only a few countries in the world where they don't want to work even more, which is Colombia and Costa Rica. And I can understand that. I've been to both of those countries, and they're fantastic countries. You don't want to work when you're in Costa Rica. You want to go surfing and eat fruit. And at Colombia, you want to do other things. Great coffee. And so this is another example of how they're how the press, and this is I think this Telegraph, the press is bad-mouthing the British worker.
I mean, I thought you were going to say Costa Rica.
They've
always got it in for them, haven't they?
Well, because they're over there. Maybe they're not. But the fact there's a huge article on this is, I'll tell you why they don't want to work. Because they all have diabetes out there. They're all sick. There's not enough. They're not being paid enough money.
Finding the bit about your ex-wife in here as well.
Well, upsettingly, he is right. There's a concern that by 2040, they're saying nearly 1 in 4 working-age people could be suffering from a significant medical condition.
Yes.
1 in 4? What?
But then it was last week or the week before on the show, there was a front page about how every constituency had an increase in people having sickies. And a lot of it was down south, and it's all mental health. And we were saying it's just Southerners having ennui, taking, I can't get the right white wine that goes with me hummus. I have to be signed off. And there's a lot of that going off in there as well. But, I mean, how do you get people to work if they genuinely have an ailment? There's work that's available, especially in this modern-day world that has work from home. Then you get them a job where they work from home, and then we can complain about them working from home, which is the other thing the newspapers do.
No, the way you get people to work is to stop their benefits, number one, and to raise the amount that they're being paid, and to give people valuable, important work, like we're on GB News. What do you think? Do you think I was doing anything before they asked me to do this?
I know you weren't. We've gigged together.
Just for a minute there, I was like, wow, it's like having Thomas Sowell in the studio, and then it went downhill again quite quickly.
It's about doing valuable work. And the fact that we've got a massive immigration, which is basically crushing paychecks, which means people don't want to work. They'd rather stay at home and collect the benefits.
Wow, OK, brilliant. News about making it rain in the Daily Star now, Steve, but it's nothing to do with that club you were talking about during the break.
Don't tell them about what I do. Dubai's making it rain with drones zapping clouds with electricity during a heat wave. And it's been raining a lot over there as well. They've had floods. And while normally people who have a house that's built on a floodplain, then it floods and then they moan about the flooding, I think you've got a point. If you're effectively in a desert and then you have to deal with flooding, basically what I'm saying is don't blame them for not packing their wellies.
Well, it's pretty sick. We've got a video of this is how serious the flooding is.
Look at that. This reminds me of the song by Megan Thee Stallion. This is what she was singing about all along.
Oh, I don't get that.
No,
Look
it's
at that.
WAP.
Oh, it's getting
I
saved.
see.
Okay. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
And now it will scratch the guy.
Well,
Yeah,
you know
definitely.
what? You know what? You haven't mentioned the most important part, is that whenever there's rain, you always get a day's worth of rain in an hour, or a week's worth of rain in an hour, or a year's worth of rain in a couple of days. That's how rain works. It doesn't have like a drop every minute for the whole day. So that's what happens with this. They got a lot of rain in a very short period of time. And if you've ever know anything about those deserty type places, which could what are you laughing at?
Can you say that?
It's a deserty type place. They have these things called wadis, which are completely dry riverbeds, and then one day every 10 years they fill up with rain.
Wow.
But it is worth mentioning they are electrocuting, they're tasering their clouds.
Yeah.
We're now in a time. It was so effective that during one test of the drones, they had to have a yellow weather warning. So there is some, and they're claiming it's not them. They weren't tasering the clouds during this. And okay, maybe.
I tried to get Steve to explain this to me earlier. I wasn't even sure if it was real. You can taser a cloud to make it rain.
Well, it makes it cry. Think about it that way.
But it has to be full of tears in the first place. I mean, you can only do that once, surely.
Yeah.
And then.
But you've got all that water vapour up there, and it's all electrically charged, and you can bring it together, and then it's heavy enough to not be able to float anymore, and it drops.
Amazing. OK, a story about peer pressure from the Mirror now. And if David Cameron jumped off a bridge, Benjamin Netanyahu probably wouldn't notice, Lewis.
Yeah, well, who would notice? Anyway, Israel to make own decision over Iran as Benjamin Netanyahu brushes off UK pressure. And this is the good news about the nuclear war. And David Cameron, who's our foreign secretary, he's not the Secretary of State or whatever they call it. There's another guy who's a cabinet member. He's not even a cabinet member, really. He's just been appointed, the foreign secretary.
He's in the cabinet, but he can't be questioned by members of the House of Commons.
Is that right?
Yeah.
OK, so I knew there's the other guy who I forgot to check who the other guy is, who's the actual main guy, and he's just this roving troublemaker. He went to Israel and he said, oh, please be nice to the Iranians. Please be nice so we don't have third war, thinking that that's going to prevent Third World War. Fact is, the Iranians are trouble. And Israel is trouble, so...
It does feel a bit sort of pompous, doesn't it? I mean, I suppose they have to go over there and say something, don't they, these important figures, but I don't feel like it's going to have a big impact.
No, and Netanyahu has to say we're ignoring this advice to look strong because that's part of the deal of trying to stay in government over there, I suppose. All of this, the big problem right now is this is a distraction because we're no longer talking about the normal story. We'll be talking about every night when it comes to that region, talking about either which way you want to look at it, getting the hostages back, or the situations in Gaza, whichever side of that debate you think is the biggest one to talk about first, but this is a distraction from it.
No, it's not a distraction. This is the same story. Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah is one big story, and there are a couple of stories, but it's definitely not a distraction. The whole Gaza thing has basically been bought and paid for by the Iranians. The Houthis have been bought and paid for by the Iranians. There's Hezbollah has been bought and paid for by the Iran.
But whenever we're talking about this row with David Cameron, we're not talking about hostages, which feels like one of the key things that needs repeating in this story every single time we talk about it.
But the fact that is a very good point. But people have forgotten about the hostages, and no amount of David Cameron mentioning the hostages it seems to work on Hamas. So I think Israel's got to deal with it.
I also think they need to put about the bigger alignment of countries: China, Russia, Iran and North Korea, the Crink Nations. Every show I'm calling that acronym, the Crink Nations.
Well, he keeps saying it yet, Stephen Allen, the Crink Nations. OK, we're halfway through. Join us in part 2 for a debate about childcare, another about money, and one about a Christmas joke that wasn't appreciated. See you in 2.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening. Temperatures dropping away tonight. It's going to be a cold start tomorrow. Much of the south will stay fine, but further north, some rain and cloud moving in, thanks to this little area of low pressure that's drifting south. Ahead of that, we've had a couple of weather fronts bringing some rain today, particularly for Northern Ireland. That's now spreading south across parts of Pembrokeshire, Devon and Cornwall, but clearing through this evening. Further showers across eastern England, they'll steadily fade as well. And where we've got the clear skies, southern Scotland, northwest England, Wales, a hint of blue on the chart, suggesting there will be a frost, certainly in the countryside. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing, but certainly a chilly start to Thursday. For many, a bright sunny start. There could be some showers early on across Kent. They should fade, but rain will creep into the Highlands of Scotland, the Western Isles first thing, and that'll spread across most of Scotland by lunchtime. Parts of the north and east of Northern Ireland seeing some rain, and through the afternoon turning damp over northern England and North Wales. But much of the south will stay dry and bright. We could reach 15 in London, a brighter day across East Anglia. Cooler further north with the winds picking up and those brisk winds, then a feature of the weather on Friday as well. Friday, broadly speaking, a mixture of sunshine and showers, a duller day across the southeast and a much wetter day across East Anglia compared to tomorrow. Feeling chilly again with that wind. Much of Northern Ireland, Scotland having a drier day, but still on the fresh side, 8 to 14 degrees.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We're in the Times next with a delicate moral dilemma. Now, I don't know if it's ever appropriate to hit children, but I've got very clear views on the use of violence against American panellists. Your thoughts, Steve?
Smacking children must be banned to stop long-term damage, doctors say. And there's a good example over there. So parents must be banned from smacking children. This is because it leads to problems later in life with issues with violence and mental health problems. 3 times as likely to develop poor mental health, twice as likely to experience physical abuse, it says here. They've done the classic thing where surely today was just a radio phone-in. I used to do that for a living, and if ever you want an easy day, you pick dangerous dogs, parking fines, or smacking your kids, because we're a nation of animal lovers, drivers, and kid smackers. And there's a loophole in the law that in England and Northern Ireland you can still hit your kids as long as it's reasonable punishment. We'll get loads of people saying, well, that was it, and it's not affected me, is it? And that's the same as finding like the one person who smoked and they're 105 and therefore saying smoking's good for you. If you want to find out, what you should do is study a large group of people to see if there's the link between the ones who were hit having worse outcomes of mental health and the ones not. And that's exactly what they've done. Admittedly, it was a landmark report by the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health. Of course, they're biased. They're in the favour of the kids. Where's the report from the Royal College of Parents Wanting an Easier Time? But I lean into this and think, yeah, do you know what? It kind of makes a bit of sense. If you teach someone who can barely understand logic that violence works, not violence, physical hitting works, I can see how it ends up being worse later in life. And actually, now I'm a parent. I've never knew this before, but now I'm a parent. You don't need to.
Yeah. Well, if you hit your kids, they'd know about it, wouldn't they? Because you're massive and they're
take
tiny.
a run up.
But I disagree with this, and I'm going to speak out in favour of. Maybe I shouldn't. But at the end of the day, children need to know there are consequences in the world. The only alternative from hitting smack. First of all, I don't believe in hitting children, and I don't even believe in smacking children.
You believe in children?
I believe that they are children, and they need to know that there are certain bad situations that they cannot get into, such as running out into the street. I think if a child runs out into the street, I think it's totally okay to smack their bottom. Maybe, just to let them know something worse can happen than having your bottom smacked.
The problem is it's really hard to measure, isn't it? Because that's a very fine, private kind of distinction, completely different to somebody who's trapped in a violent home.
Yeah.
And I don't know... Yeah, I don't know how they...
No, you hit the nail on the head. It's impossible to judge, number one. Number two is that it's more of government being involved in people's private lives. That's what this is about. This is about stopping...
I didn't want to say nanny state because it seems so inappropriate that you got
literally
there anyway.
the word nanny. You can't smoke when you're 14, you can't hit kids anymore. What am I meant to do with my Fridays?
I think hitting kids is wrong. I think hitting kids beyond a certain age is wrong. The only alternative to hitting a child is to psychologically destroy them.
That's what I'm doing.
Yes. And
that's the only alternative. You can't read a parenting book and try the latest
Well, what would you do, Cressida?
Well, who knows? That's a very good question. Lewis, you've been asking for lighter stories lately. Try this one in the Telegraph.
Okay. You know what? Can I just say this, that I don't support... whatever I just said in the previous one. I don't support that.
Do clip that.
I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble now. Anyway, pedophiles could be stripped of parental rights under proposed law. This is another thing.
Nanny state. Go on, do that argument now.
Well, it says a new law. This is by Harriet Harman, who's got like 3 months in office because her time is done. She's my MP, Harriet Harman, and she says that and this goes only for men. It's pedophiles are only men, and they're saying if you're a man and you're a pedophile, you should have your parental rights.
Does it say that? I don't think it says it's only men. Are you just making the assumption?
No. So the law is about paedophiles, but when she was interviewed on Radio 4, she did say the rights of the child should come first, not the rights of the father. And you're right. You should be like, hey.
Yeah.
I mean, statistically, it might be in your favour, but you're ignoring the fact that there could be at least one, which would prove you wrong. And then she blames the patriarchy, so maybe she had other reasons.
She's anti-man in this, and it's as if women never do anything wrong. My ex-wife. It's like...
Well, what she doesn't... She says that this is a hangover from the patriarchy, which is that the father somehow has proprietal rights. But what she doesn't say is that historically they were proprietal responsibilities. Legally, you were in charge of this kid, so if you went to prison, there was a problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's pretty astonishing that you can be a paedophile and still be able to look after your own kids. I just assume they'd be taken away.
Yeah.
Well, they're saying the parent has to do something, the father has to do something really, really bad. We don't say what it is. But they said this law could be extended. And, to what? To anything. The fact is that I'm against it.
OK.
All right.
An unfathomable story about Tesla's value in The Guardian now, Steve.
Yeah, so Tesla asked shareholders to back a $56 billion pay for Elon Musk that's been rejected by a judge. It's a tough one because lots of people watching this will be hating electric vehicles. Oh, eco-muck. But Elon Musk... Oh, he seems to like him. So this is going to be a very difficult overlap for some people. The Delaware court nullified the compensation deal. I'd be calling it an unfathomable sum. I mean, it is a big amount of money. It's, $56 billion. That would cover his amount of money he wastes on impulse purchases like social media companies. But it does seem odd that a judge just gets to slip in there and reject the pay deal. I don't know where I stand on this because I do think if you've got a deal where you don't take a salary, instead you get share options and this is how much you were meant to get, why does the judge get to stop you? But at the same time, you don't give a billionaire more billions. What do I care?
This is a very simple story. Elon Musk made a deal. He said, I'll take no money for running this company, and you have to give me basically 10% of what the company's worth if it reaches a certain point. And it reached that point, which was like $500-600 million, and he wanted his 10%. So it's so simple. And what this woman stepped in, and this is not unfathomable. This is so simple, is that this is the state mucking about in business, which is the same thing as them mucking about in families, the same thing in our private lives. Elon Musk has the right to this money. And what Elon Musk now is asking is saying to his shareholders, who are many, many rich people who've made many, many billions on their own, can I still have the money? And they'll see because he deserves the money.
Brilliant. You should be on Dragon's Den, Lewis. This next piece in The Telegraph reads like a chapter from your memoir. You've been forcibly removed from a workplace, haven't you, Lewis?
Actually, that is true. Twice the police have been called on me when I was working, when I had like real jobs. So far. And I think it's gonna happen here. I think people are like so fed up with me. Josh wants me dead. Simon can't even look at me. And Steve, it's like he's like sucking it in so well.
Well, I'm going to push back on that. It's not entirely true. Steve isn't sucking it in that way.
He isn't, but you. Anyway, Google employees arrested after protesting tech giants work with Israel. I'm sorry, this is a Josh story. The fact is that people hate the Jews, and we're all going to die. And this is a note called "No Tech for Apartheid" because Google did a deal with Israel, $1 billion contract where Israel's giving them $1 billion for cloud services. And so these people in California and in New York offices of Google.
Got a picture of them here.
Okay, and they made their own signs. You got to give them credit.
How do they not print? You literally work at Google.
Oh, good. I was
just use the printer for crying out loud.
Yeah, I was thinking that's funny. I was thinking it's good that you're right, that they're incompetent and they should be fired. So what happened is the police came in and arrested them, and but first they were placed on administrative leave, which is a prelude, I hope, to being fired. So God bless America. That would never happen.
It's just gardening leave. It's like you're being a bit of trouble. Go home. We'll still pay you. It's a gift.
Is it a gift? Well, I think it could be a prelude to them being fired.
It's a temporary gift.
Because remember, one of the guys who owns it is a Jew, this Sergey Brin, one of the main Google people, one of the three. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, no. But I think the important thing here is, did you notice Google not collapse? My email still worked. So maybe these people aren't that necessary if they can sit down for 8 hours. Also, it's Google. How do you notice a sit-in? I mean, like, they already lounge around in beanbags. But I think that there will be some pushback on this. People will say, well, where's their protest about what Hamas did? There's no tech deal to argue about there, is there? There's no kind of like, stop having that £1.50 served farm deal that you can have set up in there.
So you're saying that if there was a tech deal with Hamas, that people would be protesting?
Not those people, other people would.
No. The world has turned.
The world has turned. Finally, in this section, we go to the Daily Mail for news about a school teaching assistant receiving a humorous Christmas award. How did he take it, Steve?
Yeah. Muslim teaching assistant claims being awarded the Christmas Grinch Prize at a light-hearted school award ceremony made him a victim of religious discrimination. Salah Tofar was awarded this Grinch Prize, went up to collect it because he didn't know what the Grinch was. I think this is the most important part of the story, so let's put a pin in that because we will come back to it. He then sits back down with his award. His co-worker Googles to show him, like, look at this. Of course she does. Absolutely stirring the pot. Look at this. You seem to enjoy yourself. Let me ruin your evening. He then sues for religious discrimination, but I don't think that could be. You can't have a situation where you could give me that award as an atheist and I can do nothing, but you give that award to a Muslim and then it's illegal. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. Thankfully, the tribunal effectively agreed with me. It's because he went up and got laughed at. I believe the modern parlance is butthurt.
Yeah.
And it would be embarrassing. He was embarrassed.
Well, it's worse than that. It was his colleagues that voted for him. I mean, it wasn't a big majority. I think two other people got 3 votes and he got 4, but still.
Yeah, but still. But this is a funny story, actually, because he went to the tribunal and he said, and the tribunal, which said that he has, that he had no right to complain, which just shows that these tribunals are the last hope for the British sense of humour, the last defence of sanity. But the most important thing, a couple of things. One is it's hard to come up with prizes at these kind of events, basically. I mean, I couldn't do it, but the school he was teaching in was a school for autistic children, and this was kind of a very autistic thing to do, was to give him something and not understand that it could cause offence.
Do you think? Yeah, but the staff aren't autistic. I don't know about that. I thought it was just a good light-hearted...
But they know what autism is, and they know how to be super sensitive. So these were possibly should have been the most...
Well, they'd got previous, because he'd previously won an award for being a prankster, and that went down well. So they were treading into it, and then it went too far.
Yeah, it went too far. They were wrong this time.
OK, one more section to go. Join us after the break for a look at a new way to travel, surprising news about bees, and a discussion about the end of the internet as we know it. Don't go away.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The perception of a crime being committed is not based on whether that person intended to commit a crime or not, but whether the victim, in inverted commas, or anybody else for that matter who happened to hear whatever was said, determines that it was motivated by malice or ill will. Most of these things come out in heated exchanges or in, very casual exchanges. And then somebody says, oh, I'm offended or I'm hurt or I'm whatever because this was clearly malicious and it's against me as a black person or a transgender or sexuality, whatever it might be. And somebody says, I perceive this to be motivated by hate. Now, at that point, what is the reasonable test that anybody could apply as to what was in somebody's mind at the time? You don't know what I'm thinking now. I don't know what you're thinking now. Why is it that a crime can be committed on the basis of what somebody is alleged to be thinking?
Well, that's also how discrimination often works, because people have worked out these days that saying something or sending an email like one I received some years ago that said, let's go round her place with pickaxe handles and balaclavas and see what we can do. Now, that's an email that was sent about me. People have worked out that you don't do that. But from the circumstance of what happens, if racial taunts were being shouted, if taunts about someone's protected characteristic were being shouted in the run-up to what then happened, it would be pretty obvious that that was a hate crime.
But we know, for example, that street preachers have been arrested merely for quoting the Bible and without actually intending, anything beyond that.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christys. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christys tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Beginning this section with a story that combines mystique, romance and an extremely efficient travel network. Lewis, this is in the Telegraph.
Yeah, Germany unveils smooch cabins on intercity trains. And they haven't unveiled it, but this is a plan, and they're testing it out on the Deutsche Bahn, which is German railway, which is very efficient, but it's not as efficient as it used to be. At least the Germans are complaining about it. So they're putting in these little booths, which are 6.5 feet long and basically a meter wide, like 27 inches wide, where 2 people can go in there and have a little privacy. And something bad's going to happen.
I think something good's going to happen. You get to travel. No.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you'd be with me on this. An introvert like yourself, Steve, not having to look at people on the train. Brilliant.
Oh, yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it saves me sitting in the toilet pretending that it's engaged all the time. There. I feel sorry for the ticket inspector, because you're still going to have to do the knock on the door, kind of, where are you getting off? Well, I was thinking about her back. So I think we get away with that, Jojo.
Well, it says there's going to be a digital towel on the door.
That was gross as well. And then it explains that in Germany a towel is something that shows that it's occupied, rather than I was thinking like, oh, were you going to wipe your hands on a digital
word, towel?
No, as in putting the towels on the back of...
Sunbeds.
Yeah.
Germans put their towels out. And other...
But it just sounds like they're just going to have these little cabins, which is what the old trains used to have. Remember in It's Been a Hard Day's Night, or is it Help? Which one was the movie?
I don't know. Well, we're not as old as you. I haven't been to those kind of...
You've spit on them. You've seen the movie. What is the movie where he's sitting there? Look at my tie, is a mess. No wonder the show's going so badly.
Brilliant. OK, staying with the Telegraph and news that bees are the David Blaine of the insect world, Steve.
This is great. Bees can survive for a week underwater, according to some evil scientists. But don't worry, the article points out, no, This was an accident. They had some hibernating queen bees, and they were left in a place near... It was refrigerated, so there was some condensation, and they were accidentally drowned. They're not evil scientists. They accidentally left them submerged in water. They found that some of them were still alive. So what they did, and after they made this discovery, the scientists who aren't evil decided to then experiment by drowning some more bees to work out what it's about. That's what's evil.
1 in 10 bees died. That's the same as gladiators in the Roman times. 1 in 10 chance.
Of dying?
Yeah.
You're trying to make a moral equivalent.
All the time. They needed them for sport. And the scientists need the bees. And we all need the bees. You can't just drown bees.
Can I just say, though, this research, then they then looked into all the different ways in which they managed to survive the drowning. How will this research help us? Have you ever wanted to drown a hibernating queen bee? If not, this will not help you.
Yeah, and the fact is, this is scientists, which is your people. And I'm surprised this order...
Imagine if I said that to you.
And it's your people, scientists.
That's the phrase.
And it's basically saying that we need to worry about this because of climate change. This is one of those stories that the reason they did it, they do everything. Why did the chicken cross the road? Climate change.
Yeah, we're supposed to feel very good about bees, aren't we? Very worthy animals. OK, a story from The Guardian now about crops, Lewis. Did you read it or did you just stop and have a steak?
I read it. I read it because it's about climate change. It's another story, but this is it's like everything's about climate change now. Gene editing crops to be colourful could aid weeding, says scientists. They basically say we're going to take. So these scientists at the University of Copenhagen, lovely Copenhagen, and they wrote it about the trends in plant science. They said if we gene change, whatever it's called, gene change, that's a technical word,
change your genes,
and make them more colourful, we will know which are the weeds and which aren't the weeds, so we can get rid of the ones that are more colourful. It's like going after gingers or something.
Is that what it's like?
Yeah, it's like saying, hey, we recognize that plant, and it's a bad plant because it's a different colour. And why do they need to do it? They need to do it because prevent food shortages as the climate breaks down. This is you, Steve, Mr. Climate Change.
Science? Oh, yeah. I mean, look, so all it is, you put gene editing or gene changing, as it's technically known, in a headline, and people go, oh, no, they're playing God. Well, that's effectively what you do by selecting anyway. Throughout history, we've picked the plant that we prefer, and then that's the one that grows. So this will be absolutely fine, or this will mean all humans in the future are purple. We don't know. We'll find out.
Excellent. Independent now, and it turns out that the internet is on its deathbed, Steve. I think I'm OK with that.
Humans now share the web equally with bots, report warns amid fears of a dead internet, because it's just bots talking to each other. It's now 49.6% of internet traffic's bots. Some of them are Lewis's biggest fans. We'll get some messages from them later. But this is going to get worse because of AI. This is basically going to be robots talking to robots on the internet. Fine, we won't notice. Have a nice little chat. There's a widespread use of bots already causing problems for X, formerly Twitter. Popular posts are now hit by loads of comments advertising pornography. And I must admit, after each time we do a show here, there is one channel that always says lovely little pictures, because it's just a little amuse-bouche between all the hate that we get from people who just have all the hate, and then you go, press to reveal, oh, all right, and then you crack on back to the hate.
How is the internet dying, though? That's the bit I don't...
Yeah, I didn't understand that myself, Steve.
Well, it's because we're not going to be involved in it as much. The internet, a bigger chunk of the internet will be bots talking to bots.
Fair enough. A bigger chunk of our time will be used looking at bots, and it just means we're going to look at it and...
Good-looking bots.
Sexy bots.
Yeah. Finally, we go to the Daily Star. It seems Mexican women spend far too much on pants and they need to go to Primark, Lewis.
Yeah, God bless the Daily Star. We haven't had our, weather story. But this is a weather point.
We did start the show with a weather story. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah, we did, didn't we? Oh, it's been such a long time. Anyway, Mexican drug cartels are stealing women's undie in military-style raids. And this is the Daily Star, which is ridiculous, because it's not saying that there's a truckload of ladies' underwear and we're going to capture it. No, this is just the Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generation cartels in Mexico. They're hijacking every truck, and some of those trucks
Can I just say really quickly, drugs and women's underwear, a lot in common. You will ruin your 20s if you get into sniffing them.
Yeah.
The show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages. The Daily Mail has Tories trail Labour on defence, tax, migration, even Brexit. The Telegraph has Rayner faces new homes tax questions. The Guardian has Brexit blamed as UK drugs shortages put lives at risk. The Times has hopes of rate cuts suffer blow, and iNews has Israel will defy plea for restraint and strike Iran, Cameron reveals. And finally, The Sun has American Idol Harry. And those were your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thanks to my guests. Lewis is back here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Kerry Marks and Leo Kearse. If you're staying tuned for breakfast, do that. Good night.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening. Temperatures dropping away tonight. It's going to be a cold start tomorrow. Much of the south will stay fine, but further north, some rain and cloud moving in thanks to this little area of low pressure that's drifting south. Ahead of that, we've had a couple of weather fronts bringing some rain today, particularly for Northern Ireland. That's now spreading south across parts of Pembrokeshire, Devon and Cornwall, but clearing through this evening. Further showers across eastern England, they'll steadily fade as well. And where we've got the clear skies, southern Scotland, northwest England, Wales, a hint of blue on the chart, suggesting there will be a frost, certainly in the countryside. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing, but certainly a chilly start to Thursday. For many, a bright sunny start. There could be some showers early on across Kent. They should fade, but rain will creep into the Highlands of Scotland, the Western Isles first thing, and that'll spread across most of Scotland by lunchtime. Parts of the north and east of Northern Ireland seeing some rain, and through the afternoon turning damp over northern England and North Wales. But much of the south will stay dry and bright. We could reach 15 in London, a brighter day across East Anglia. Cooler further north with the winds picking up and those brisk winds, then a feature of the weather on Friday as well. Friday, broadly speaking, a mixture of sunshine and showers, a duller day across the southeast and a much wetter day across East Anglia compared to tomorrow. Feeling chilly again with that wind. Much of Northern Ireland, Scotland having a drier day, but still on the fresh side, 8 to 14 degrees.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and explore Greece like never before. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Jubber, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubber and Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Day 2 of the NatCon conference in Brussels did happen. Yes, a big ruling in the Belgian courts overnight and a huge victory, I think, for free speech. Rwanda ping-pong continues to go on between the Commons and the House of Lords. Tonight is the night that the Lords are supposed to fold. But what if they don't?